Hey guys, tonight we step into the silent corridors of the Forbidden City, where every glance means something, and every silence means more. You're barely 16, walking in worn embroidered slippers that are 2 sizes too tight, stepping onto cold, polished stone floors. Ahead, the gates loom like the mouth of a sleeping dragon, carved and lacquered, too beautiful to be comforting. The air is thick with incense and politics. Your heart beats fast, but you keep your face calm. You've been told to show no emotion. Not fear, not pride, not awe. Just grace. Your hair has been twisted into a style you've never worn before. Your silks are stiff, loaned from the provincial governor's wife, and under all that perfume, frankly, you smell like sweat. Welcome to the Imperial Palace. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're tuning in tonight, drop a comment with your location and the time where you are. I'm always curious who's drifting off with these stories. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're not here because you fell in love. You're not even here because you want it to be. You're here because your family wants favor. Maybe your uncle had gambling debts. Maybe your father's grain harvest was light and needed a tax break. Or maybe lucky. Your skin was pale enough, your manners soft enough, your handwriting passable. Either way, you're here now, standing in a courtyard ringed with red columns and silence. A eunuch, dressed in indigo robes, clears his throat. You flinch, barely. He gestures for you to follow. You enter through a low side hall, past folding screens painted with cranes and clouds. Everything is designed to make you feel small, and it works. You're taken first to the registry hall, where 3 women with serious eyebrows ask your name, your place of birth, the names of your parents, your height, and awkwardly whether your cycle is regular. You try not to blush. One of them makes a faint note on a scroll. "Too thin," she murmurs. The other 2 nod like judges at a vegetable contest. Then they hand you a small bundle, a blue silk sash. "It's your new status, Maka. You are now a 5th-rank concubine. You don't ask what the other ranks are. You'll learn them soon enough. It's basically a ladder, and right now, you're standing under it, hoping not to get crushed." They give you a new name. Your old one is discarded like used paper. This name means graceful jade or something equally ironic, considering you just tripped over your own hem while walking in. You're led to the fresh hall, where new arrivals spend their first weeks. It smells of lavender oil and anxiety. There are 6 other girls. Already, there are none of them older than 20. You can feel the tension crackling between hairpins. No one says hello. Your bed is the one by the window. The mattress is thin. There's 1 pillow, filled with coarse millet husk. A teapot sits on a low table. It is empty. The eunuch who led you here gestures again. You follow. You are not allowed to speak unless spoken to. That rule is already one of the ones tattooed on your brain. He brings you to a small courtyard with a stone basin. There, another woman is waiting. She wears slightly nicer robes and a hairpin shaped like a butterfly. She looks you over like a goose. She's thinking about cooking. "You'll report to Lady Ping," she says. "She's your superior. She doesn't like questions." You nod. "That's the correct answer." She leans in a little. Her breath smells like jasmine and secret. Don't trust anyone who smiles too much, especially if their sleeves are long enough to hide poison. It's not exactly a welcome message. Back in your room, someone has left a tray of rice, dried fish, and boiled greens. A girl across the hall stares at you while chewing. You eat slowly, not because you're being polite, but because your stomach is too tight to swallow quickly. That night, sleep doesn't come easily. The mattress squeaks when you move. Someone cries softly 2 beds down. Someone else mutters a prayer. And out beyond the paper screens, the moon hangs like a judge over the city of secrets. Somewhere in the palace, the emperor is probably drinking tea, or playing Go, or being entertained by someone with better skin than you. You wonder if he even knows you've arrived. You wonder if he'll ever know your name. A breeze rattles the bamboo shades. You realize this is your life now. No door opens outward, and even if it did, you wouldn't know which direction led to home. Historians still argue whether concubines of lower rank ever truly had agency, or if their elevation was just luck and proximity. But lying there, staring at the cracks in the ceiling, you already understand. Survival depends less on beauty and more on silence, timing, and which way the wind blows in the emperor's heart. You roll to your side and press your face into the millet pillow. And for the first time in your new name, you cry. But only for a minute. Someone might hear. Morning arrives with the sound of bells, not cheerful ones. Mind you, these are the kind that clang with obligation. You open your eyes slowly, stiff from the unfamiliar mattress, your neck twisted from dreaming like a trapped bird. There is a soft knock at the paper screen. It's not a request. It's time. Amadeus now apparently enters without looking you in the eye. She's younger than you expected, maybe 13, her head bowed, her movements rehearsed. She lays out your robe, brushes, and a tiny box of red pigment with the care of someone handling royal scrolls. You barely whisper thanks. She bows again and vanishes, like a ghost, a sign to your care. Today, you're due for inspection. You're not entirely sure what that means, but judging from the way the other new girls whispered about it last night, it's not something you can skip. You're led through a quiet corridor, past stone lanterns and shallow koi ponds. The fish, as usual, live better than most humans. 2 older concubines pass you in the opposite direction. Hair sculpted high, lips tinted like rose petals, their footsteps silent on the stone. Neither looks at you. You might as well be a broom leaning against a wall. The room where the inspection takes place is airy, windowed, and smells of sandalwood. A large folding screen separates the entrance from what lies ahead. You're told to wait behind it. Then you hear the voice. Next. It's high-pitched, neutral, and alarmingly precise. A eunuch. You step forward. There are 3 men seated behind a table, all dressed identically in deep purple robes. Their heads clean-shaven, their faces smooth and unreadable. On the table rests a scroll, a jade brush, a silver basin of water, and, concerningly, pair of calipers. You don't get a chance to speak. They begin immediately. Hands out. You extend your hands. One of them leans forward, inspecting your nails, the smoothness of your knuckles. He nods, scribbles something. Teeth. You hesitate for half a breath, then part your lips. A small mirror is used to reflect light into your mouth. You try not to gag. Eyes. Hair. Posture. You feel more like a prize goat than a person. There's no shame left to blush with. Height. 5 chi 4 kun, you mumble. One of them raises a brow. Too short for ceremonial functions, he says. The other shrugs. But delicate enough. They nod together, as if discussing a decorative vase, not a living, breathing girl. Then comes the worst part. Turn around, one says. You obey? Back straight. A long silence follows. Then the scrape of the calipers. They measure your hips. Fertility potential. Acceptable. One murmurs. You stare ahead at a tapestry depicting cranes flying over a river. One crane has a single frayed thread in its wing. You want to scream, but instead, you count the stitches. 1, 2, 3. This process is not unique to you. In fact, It's been a standard ritual in palace life for centuries. Historians still debate whether the level of scrutiny given to concubines was more for medical accuracy or simply a form of control disguised as concern. Either way, it's humiliating. You're dismissed with a flick of the hand. Back outside, the light feels too bright, too rude, like it's also judging you. Your maid waits, head still bowed. No words pass between you. She knows better than to ask how it went. The walk back is long, not in distance, but in weight. You now know something you didn't before. You are an object under observation, a vase to be catalogued, positioned, perhaps displayed, but never allowed to gather dust. You pass the bronze mirror in your quarters and stop. For a long moment, you look at your reflection. The girl who entered the palace yesterday already feels like someone else. Someone softer. Someone who cried. Today, your face is harder. Your eyes, more watchful. Later that afternoon, your name is called again. This time, it's not inspection, it's etiquette lessons. You sit on a cushion in a circular room with 7 other girls, all with the same blank expressions. A woman in silver robes enters, her posture like a blade. Her name is Madame Liu, and she teaches etiquette to every concubine before they're allowed within 20 feet of the emperor. Lesson 1. How to bow. Not just how, but when, for how long, and to what angle based on rank. The empress, 90 degrees, 5 breaths. A favored concubine, 75. Eunuchs, technically none, but a nod is polite. Mistime your bow, and it can cost you a privilege like tea access or warm water for your hair. Lesson 2. Smile training. Yes, smile training. You are taught how to stretch your lips just enough to seem graceful, not desperate. The smile of modest gratitude, the smile of gentle correction, and, most frequently used, the smile of silent understanding. You practice for hours. Your face begins to cramp. At one point, a girl to your left mutters, "I used to sing in the market." She's quickly silence returns. The day ends with calligraphy and odd choice, until you learn that beautifully written poems are often gifted to the emperor, alongside fruit or song. You write the same lines 17 times, like dew upon morning petals. Favor is fleeting. You wonder if that was meant to be comforting or a warning. Back in your quarters, the other girls are quieter now. One stares at the ceiling. Another pulls loose threads from her sleeve. You sit, stretch your sore fingers, and realize the inspection was not the worst part. The worst part is knowing that it was only the beginning. You wake up before the bell this time, partly because your pillow feels like it was stuffed with gravel, but mostly because your dreams were full of floating scrolls and whispering shadows. Something about the palace seeps into your sleep now. You get dressed in the dark, fingers fumbling with silk ties that never sit quite right, then sit by the window, listening for the sound that cues the rest of your day. It's not the bell that comes first, it's the footsteps. A low shuffle of felt-soled shoes gliding across polished stone. Eunuchs move, like they're part of the architecture. Always there, never seen. This morning, you're not being summoned for inspection or etiquette. No. Today is orientation for new residents. The title sounds harmless, almost modern. You imagine a smiling guide, a welcome kit, maybe a dumpling. Instead, it's 4 hours of rules. A woman named Lady Chun, dressed in crimson robes with black trim, walks into the room like she owns the oxygen. Her voice is clear, her tone clipped. She begins, "There are 137 codified rules governing concubines in the inner court." You do the math. That's about 4.5 rules per day, if you wanted to learn them over a month. You'll be tested by dusk. Some are expected no shouting, no leaving your quarters without permission, no speaking to guards. But others are excessive. Rule 27. Never make eye contact with the Empress unless she initiates it. Rule 64. Tea must be poured clockwise. Never wittersins a word that haunts you for days. Rule 81. Do not stand directly under lanterns during festivals. Your shadow must not compete with the Emperor's. You write furiously on your little parchment sheet, fingers cramping. Then Lady Chun leans forward, a ghost of a smile on her lips. There are also rules not written, she says. You go. Of course, there are. She goes on to describe what kinds of gifts are acceptable to offer. Senior concubines, silk flowers equals respectful. Real flowers equals arrogant. She notes the correct tone of voice for a morning greeting. She spends 15 minutes explaining the fine line between graceful silence and rude indifference. By the time the sun is directly overhead, your mind is a tangle of bow angles, forbidden words, and phrases like toe placement etiquette. Historians still argue whether such extreme rule-setting was truly for harmony, or if it was a clever way to keep women too exhausted to plot. Either way, you can already feel it working. You shuffle back to your quarters in silence. Even breathing feels like something that might need permission now. There's a tray of lunch waiting. Cold rice, pickled radish, and a half-boiled egg. You're too tired to care that the yolk is gray. But just as you're about to take your first bite, there's a soft knock. Your maid appears, head bowed. She speaks so quietly, you almost don't hear it. You are summoned for your first bath. That shouldn't sound ominous. But in this place, anything new carries the weight of unseen consequences. You're taken to the bathing hall, a domed chamber with walls tiled in pale jade. The air is humid, filled with steam that smells faintly of camphor and chrysanthemum. Candlelight dances across the water's surface. Other concubines are already there, lounging like cats with too many secrets. They eye you, some with boredom, others with vague amusement. An older woman, probably in her 30s, which here makes her, practically, a fossil, approaches. Her hair is perfectly coiled, her hands soft but commanding. I'm Lady Ning, she says. I supervise the fresh flowers. That's you. You're a fresh flower. A phrase that sounds gentle, but here it's closer to newly planted and possibly trampled. She points to a wooden stool. Undress and sit. You obey. Two maids begin to pour warm water over you, slowly, carefully. Then comes the rose-scented soap, the almond oil, and a long, stiff brush that makes you question if this is luxury or punishment. Lady Ning circles you once, then twice, like a predator evaluating its meal. Not bad, she murmurs. But your elbows are too dry. And your knees, well, we'll work on those. You flush, but say nothing. Then she leans down, close to your ear. Never let your skin flake. Flakes suggest neglect. Neglect suggests unworthiness. The Emperor notices everything. She smiles gently, then moves on to scold another girl whose shoulders apparently curve too much when seated. This bath, you realize, is not about cleanliness. It's a ritual of inspection, a performance of readiness, a test. By the end of it, your skin glows, your muscles ache, and your pride is somewhere at the bottom of the tub, possibly floating beside the camellia petals. You're helped into a new robe thinner than your old, one then escorted back through a quiet garden. Bamboo stalks sway in the wind, but even the wind seems to tiptoe here. The whole palace is built for whispers. That night, as you lie down on your coarse pillow, one thought loops in your mind like a silk ribbon tied too tight. You're not being trained to serve a man. You're being trained to survive a system. And it's just getting started. The next night, your sleep is lighter than usual. Not quite rest, not quite awareness. Every creak of the wooden beams, every shifting breath from the girl beside you feels like a prelude to something. And then, just before dawn, it happens. A knock. Not on your door. On hers. The girl, two mats Over Milan, quiet, with eyes like a startled deer is summoned. You hear the rustle of her robes, the scrape of the wooden door sliding open, and then silence. She doesn't come back until late the next evening. When she does, her hair is undone, her eyes empty. She walks like her feet have forgotten what they're for. No one asks what happened. You all know what happened. Your turn will come too. But before it does, there are other lessons to endure. Today, you're to be taught the Emperor's preferences. Yes, there's an actual scroll. You sit cross-legged in a narrow chamber scented with ink and ginseng. A eunuch with a nasal voice reads aloud from a golden-edged scroll like he's reciting sacred scripture. But before it does, there are other lessons to endure. Today, you're to be taught the Emperor's preferences. Yes, there's an actual scroll. You sit cross-legged in a narrow chamber scented with ink and ginseng. A eunuch with a nasal voice reads aloud from a golden-edged scroll like he's reciting sacred scripture. You suppress a sigh. Some of it feels absurd. Some of it feels dangerous. His Majesty also favors women who listen more than speak. The eunuch continues, eyes flicking up. But when they do speak, wit is preferable to obedience. A trap, surely, but you nod politely. You're given a silk-bound notebook to study. The front cover is embroidered with cranes, the inside with disaster. Every detail, from favorite soups to astrological beliefs, is written in delicate ink. Strokes. You're to memorize it. That evening, as you sit under the oil lamp, mouthing lines about plum wine and calligraphy styles, your maid slips in. There is a dinner, she says, eyes downcast. You may be observed. Not attend. Not enjoy. You may be observed. You are dressed in pale lavender robes, soft and simple. The kind that's supposed to say, I'm beautiful, but I don't know it. Your hair is arranged with a single silver comb, nothing too flashy. Everything is calculated. You are led to the banquet hall, a vast room with lacquered screens, golden candlelight, and the soft thrum of zip. Tables stretch like rivers. The Empress is seated at the far end, surrounded by her personal circle, all glittering like stars. You are seated, not quite near the back, but far enough to know your rank. You keep your hands in your lap. You smile once, and then not again. You don't speak unless spoken to. You chew each bite slowly, though the food tastes like cardboard under your nerves. At one point, someone refills your tea, and the Empress's gaze flickers in your direction. Just for a second, but it's enough to chill the room. Historians still debate how much real power the Empress held over the concubines. Some say she was a puppet for ceremony. Others insist her word could end a life. Either way, her presence is not to be ignored, and she has noticed you. After the meal, you are dismissed like a servant. The walk back to your room feels longer than usual. The shadows cling to your sleeves. That night, the other girls ask nothing. You offer nothing, but inside, your thoughts are spiraling. You wonder what Milan was thinking, sitting in that candlelit room, wearing perfume selected by someone else, reciting lines she barely understood. You wonder what she felt the moment the doors closed and she was left alone with the Emperor. Excitement, terror, a strange sort of numbness, or all of the above. You doze off wondering how many girls whispered to the ceiling, "Please pick me," and how many whispered, "Please don't." You're not sure what you are yet. The next morning is mercifully ordinary. You spend it in embroidery practice, stitching phoenix feathers into a sash you'll never wear. You prick your finger twice. No one offers sympathy. Then there's more calligraphy, more bow practice, and a brief moment of quiet in the garden. You sit beneath a plum tree, its blossoms starting to open. A breeze drifts through, scattering petals like forgotten thoughts. For the first time in days, you feel a flicker of peace, until someone sits beside you. It's another concubine older, with a knowing smile. Don't let the trees fool you, she says gently. They're the only thing in here allowed to grow wild. You turn to look at her, but she's already standing, already walking away. You don't even know her name, but the message lingers long after she's gone. In this place, beauty can be dangerous. Silence, survival, and every day you learn something else that cannot be written in scrolls. Something only lived, and if you're very lucky, outlived. That night, you don't sleep at all. Not because anything happens. Nothing does, and that's the problem. You wait. You watch the shadows shift across the ceiling. You imagine what it must be like, that walk through the winding halls to the Emperor's chamber, escorted by silent eunuchs, your slippers barely brushing the stone. But your name is not called. Your robe remains folded. Your hair stays pinned. And still, your stomach knots itself with anticipation or dread. It's hard to tell the difference anymore. Around midnight, one of the other girls, Jinhua, a former merchant's daughter with perfect posture, gets summoned. She goes with such calm grace that it almost angers you. But then again, maybe she's just better at hiding the storm behind her eyes. When she returns, hours later, she is quiet, and she smells of sandalwood. No one asks. No one has to. The next morning, something new appears at your bedside. A small lacquered box containing a comb, a strip of red silt, and a tiny sachet of jasmine. This, you're told, is for the first night in waiting. You're to be dressed and prepared. You're not guaranteed to be chosen, but you must be ready. The Emperor may or may not summon anyone from the pool of concubines on rotation. It's like a beauty pageant, except the winner doesn't smile and no one gets a crown. You dress with trembling hands. The robe is light blue, with sleeves that feel like they belong to someone else. Your hair is arranged by two maids, both silent as shadows. Your lips are stained with a touch of crushed plum blossom. You are not allowed to eat, to ensure no bad breath. Not even tea. You rinsed your mouth with astringent water that tastes like metal and flowers. You wait in a long corridor lit with lanterns. Dozens of other girls are there too, all equally beautiful, equally anxious. A few whispered under their breath. Most are silent. Your hands tremble in your sleeves. One by one, names are called, not yours. Not yet. You begin to wonder if this will go on all night, if the Emperor might simply fall asleep, or choose no one at all. But then, 3 names before yours, a eunuch steps forward and says it. Your new name, the one the registry gave you. Graceful Jade. You stand. Time slows. You walk, 1 step at a time, following a flickering lantern held by a servant whose face you never see. You pass gardens, bathed in moonlight, corridors so quiet you can hear the flap of a moth's wing. At one point, you step over a red ribbon laid across the floor, a symbolic barrier, meant to keep bad spirits from following. Eventually, you arrive at the doors. 2 eunuchs bow. They open the lacquered panels without a word, and you step into the Emperor's private chamber. It smells of incense and ink. The room is surprisingly plain. No gold, no fireworks, just a low couch, a silk screen painted with cranes, and a table set with warm tea. He is seated near the back, wearing a robe so simple it would be scandalous in public. His hair is unbound. He looks up. He's younger than you expected. You bow, exactly 75 degrees, as practiced. He says nothing for a long time. Finally, he gestures to the cushion across from him. You sit, your knees folded perfectly beneath you. The tea is poured. He doesn't ask your name. He already knows it, or doesn't care. He asks where you're from, what your favorite flower is, whether you play the zip. You answer quietly, briefly. You don't want to say too much, but you also don't want to seem dull. At one point, he laughs at something you say. It's not a cruel laugh. You almost smile. Historians still argue whether emperors sought intellectual companionship from their concubines or merely amusement. Some accounts speak of emperors falling in love with clever women. Others suggest their preferences changed with the direction of the wind. You don't have the luxury of pondering that now. You're too focused on breathing. The conversation continues softly. Eventually, he stands. You follow his lead. A hand is extended. You take it. Your heart is thudding so loudly you're sure he can hear it. What happens next is not frightening. Not really. But it feels like stepping into a current too strong to swim against. You've rehearsed this moment so many times that it feels almost separate from you. You float through it. You are water. You are petals. You are a name written on a scroll and sealed with wax. Hours later, you return to your quarters before sunrise. A maid tucks you into bed like a child. No one speaks. But when the bell rings the next morning, something is different. A tray of peaches awaits you. Peaches are a symbol. Everyone knows this. Peaches mean favor. You haven't just survived your first night, you've been noticed, and now everyone else knows it too. Some smile at you that morning. Some avoid your eyes. One girl drops a comb when you enter the room. You're not sure if it was an accident. You're too tired to care. You lie down again later that day, still in your robe, and let your breath slow. You've passed through a door that doesn't swing back. There is no going home now. And from here on out, the real game begins. The peaches are sweet, but the smiles are not. Word spreads faster than incense smoke in the palace. You've been favored. You, graceful jade, the girl who barely knew which sleeve to bow with a week ago. Now you're no longer just a name on the roster, a possibility, and that, in this world, is as dangerous as it is desirable. By midday, your routine has already changed. You're excused from embroidery practice and escorted instead to the hall of fragrant elegance, a private garden where concubines of note are permitted to walk, nap, and be quietly envied. Your maid, clearly rattled, scrambles to gather your things. She stutters more now. She bows deeper. You're beginning to learn that favor doesn't only change how others treat you, it changes how they move. Slower, more cautious. You are no longer background. But with this new attention comes something less delicate. Whispers. They start at breakfast. You overhear two girls behind the curtain claiming your father bribed a eunuch. Later, while soaking your sore feet in hot water, a pair of concubines pass by, loudly wondering whether you knew how to behave, or just got lucky. It's not subtle, and it's only the beginning. After all, the palace runs on hierarchy, and you've just leapfrogged several people who've been waiting years for their chance to shine. Historians still puzzle over the fluidity of rank in imperial harems. While official titles mattered, Feva often rewrote the rules. Some concubines remained low-ranked, but highly influential, while others held noble titles, but were effectively invisible. You're now caught in that unstable space in between. One misstep could send you tumbling back down, which brings you to today's lesson. Status symbols. Specifically, hairpins. You're brought to a small chamber with velvet cushions and an array of hair ornaments displayed like sacred relics. The instructor, a slender woman named Lady Bibbigans. The session without preamble. In the inner court, she says, a woman's rank can be read in her hair. She gestures to the display. This, for example, is a third-rank phoenix pin. 2 feathers, 1 ruby, ivory base. She moves to the next one. 4th-rank blossom comb, pearl edge, silver inlay. Worn only on even-numbered festival days. You blink. Why only even-numbered? Lady Bi silences you with a raised eyebrow. Because odd-numbered days are reserved for jade. Of course, you're handed a lacquered box containing your new assignment. a slender golden pin with a rose quartz tip. It's delicate, understated, and every time someone sees it, they'll know you've been selected, but not promoted, which is to say, they know you've been noticed but not protected. That's a dangerous place to be. That evening, a servant appears at your door with a new robe, deep plum with embroidered peonies. You know enough by now to recognize the color as significant. It's not red reserved for the Empress, but it's far from the beige of insignificance. You're told to wear it to evening tea, in the garden of distant harmony. This is not a casual gathering. It's curated. When you arrive, you find yourself seated near Lady Chun, one of the Emperor's older favorites. She is beautiful in the way marble is cold, smooth, unmoved by time. Her voice is low and melodic. Her laugh is gentle and terrifying. So, she says, sipping her tea, "You've had your moment." You bow your head slightly. "It was an honor." She tilts her head. "An honor is a silk thread. Pull too hard, and it breaks." You're not sure whether it's a warning, a riddle, or both. As the evening unfolds, you begin to see the chessboard. Every compliment is a test. Every pause is loaded. One girl comments on your robes, stitch in admiration, laced with judgment. Another offers you a fruit you're not supposed to accept, then watches as you decline it, nodding approvingly. It's exhausting. By the time you return to your quarters, your cheeks ache from soft smiling. You sit down, yank the rose quartz hairpin from your bun, and throw it onto the vanity with more force than necessary. Your maid flinches. "Sorry," you mumble. She bows and says nothing. You look at yourself in the bronze mirror. You look ... different. Not just more tired, but sharper. Like something inside you is beginning to calcify. You think of the girl who cried into her millet's pillow just days ago. She's still in there, somewhere, but quieter now, hardened. Later, as you try to sleep, a quiet knock comes at your door. It's Mil. She slips in like a shadow and sits beside you. Her voice is barely audible. "Don't eat anything you didn't watch being prepared." You blink. "Why?" She doesn't answer. She just stands and leaves. And just like that, you're no longer thinking about the peaches. You're thinking about the girl who used to sleep beside you, and the way she hasn't spoken since her second night with the Emperor. And suddenly, everything feels less like a fairy tale and more like a trap filled with silk, tea, and poisoned smiles. The air feels heavier after Millen's warning. You skip breakfast the next morning not because you're full of dread, though that's part of it, but because the idea of eating something touched by unknown hands makes your stomach twist. You tell your maid you're fasting for purity, and she nods solemnly like it's a spiritual awakening instead of fear-induced. Today, you're expected to report to the waiting pavilion at dusk. You don't ask questions. You just nod and prepare. The waiting pavilion is where favored concubines go to, how shall we say, linger attractively. The Emperor doesn't always choose a companion for the night, but if he does, it's from this elegant lineup. It's a sort of curated window shopping, except instead of dresses, it's women. And instead of mannequins, you're breathing, blinking, possibly terrified. In the hours leading up to your appearance, you are polished, bathed in milk water, hair oiled with a scent known as wistful autumn, cheeks dabbed with powdered pearl. You're told not to speak, unless spoken to, not to move too much, and definitely not to laugh unless he makes a joke which you're warned might not sound like a joke. You nod. You've become very good at nodding. Your robe is gold today, with threads so fine they shimmer like spider silk. When you walk, you're instructed to do so at half pace. Arms relaxed, eyes lowered just enough to seem humble but not afraid. You rehearse the walk 3 times in the corridor, adjusting your balance like a porcelain figurine, trying not to topple off a shelf. The waiting pavilion is shaped like a crescent moon along the walls, Cushioned seats are arranged for concubines in rotation. You take your place near the middle, not too close to the front, not too obscure. A perfect, coincidental presence. Soft music plays. Zithers, wind flutes. It should be calming, but it only tightens the knot in your chest. Then the doors open. He enters. The Emperor. You lower your gaze, but your senses sharpen. You smell his usual blend of pine and musk. You hear the light scuff of his embroidered shoes. You note the small cough he makes as he takes a seat across the room. He speaks softly to one of the eunuchs. You can't hear what he says, but a moment later, another girl, one near the front, is summoned. You are not chosen. Not tonight. And in a strange twist of emotion, you feel ... relief. Maybe even a touch of disappointment. It's complicated. Historians still debate how much say the Emperor truly had in his nightly choices. Some claim it was all orchestrated behind the scenes by powerful eunuchs, or the Empress herself. Others believe the whims of the Emperor were absolute. What no one disputes is the anxiety it produced in every woman waiting. You're beginning to understand why some concubines hoped never to be noticed again. When the evening concludes, you are escorted back in silence. No words are exchanged. No expressions acknowledged. It's like nothing happened. And yet, everything did. Later that night, your robe is folded with extra care. You tuck it away with the rest of your slowly growing collection gifts. Silks, the rose quartz pin. Each item is a badge, not of victory, but survival. The girl who was chosen doesn't return to her quarters until nearly dawn. She walks differently now. A little stiffer, a little more carefully, like she's trying to hold something in, or maybe keep something from leaking out. No one speaks to her. Not yet. Tomorrow, the whispers will start again. That afternoon, during garden time, someone spills tea on your sleeve. It's not an accident. You don't react. You simply stand, bow slightly, and request fresh water. The girl who did it late is you, daughter of a provincial generalux. Disappointed you didn't flinch. She will try again. Everyone here always tries again. Later, as you walk the corridor back to your quarters, you pass a servant carrying a tray with a familiar scent. You feel your throat tighten. Who are those for? You ask gently. The eunuch glances at you, surprised that you've spoken. Lady Jinhua, he says, from the Emperor. You nod. You don't let your face change, but your stomach burns. Lady Jinhua, girl who walked so gracefully on her first night, has replaced you in the rotation. Favor, like dew on petals, evaporates quickly. Back in your quarters, you sit by the window, watching the shadows stretch long across the courtyard. Your maid lights the lamp, but you wave her off. You prefer the dark tonight. You remember the first time you stepped through these gates. Your slippers too tight, your mind full of unformed fears. Now the fears have faces. You lie down, staring at the beams above your head. One of them creaks softly in the breeze. You wonder what's worse, being chosen or being forgotten. You're starting to suspect the answer is yes. By the third week, the palace begins to show its true face. The pavilions are still beautiful. The koi still swim with lazy elegance. The peonies still bloom with the sort of lavish indifference only imperial flowers can afford. But now you see the sharpness beneath it. All the glances, the silence, the slow games played with polished smiles and sharpened fans. And so it begins. The rivalries. You never expected friendship? Exactly. But you didn't expect this either. The way Lady Zhu brushes past you in the hallway, just hard enough that her sleeve snags on your embroidery. The way Lady Jinhua places her tray just a bit too close to yours at mealtime, forcing you to move yours slightly off the mat like some kind of quiet territorial game. The way two girls whisper behind a fan when you walk into a room and then go utterly still as you pass. These are not the tantrums of children. They are calculated, adult, political, Your status is no longer new nor favored. You're in between. And in the palace, in between is where accidents happen. This morning, your slippers are missing. Not all of them, just the left one. You find it later, near the garden pond, soaked through and reeking faintly of fish. You say nothing. You put them both aside and wear your ceremonial pair instead. Your maid looks nervous when she sees them. You're not supposed to wear. I know, you say, with a small, flat smile. You're learning. That afternoon, during your assigned calligraphy session, someone switches your ink with a thicker, stickier batch. Your brushwork comes out clumsy and uneven, and the instructor, a humorless man who seems to be sculpted from clay, frowns. You've been here long enough to know better, he mutters. You bow your head. Say nothing, but your fingers tremble the rest of the hour. Historians still debate how widespread these rivalries were among concubines. Some suggest they were exaggerated by later writers to dramatize palace life, but others argue that, when survival depended on remaining visible but not to visible, women developed their own quiet warfare. This wasn't violence, it was erosion, the paper cuts of palace life. At dinner, Lady Ning invites you to sit beside her. You hesitate, then accept. She is older, high-ranked, and absolutely terrifying. She pours your tea herself, which is either a sign of kindness or a prelude to something much more strategic. Do you know what the worst thing is in this place? She asks. You shake your head. Being forgettable, she says. Pretty fades. Wit bores, but forgettable. That's death. You sip your tea and try not to flinch. Someone spilled sesame oil on your robe last week, she continues. Without looking at you, someone else switched your ink. Lady Jinhua's maid was in the garden when your slipper went missing. Your heart pounds, but your face stays still. You're doing well, she adds, but you're playing too softly. You finally meet her gaze. What should I do? She smiles. Don't wait for someone to trip you. Move the carpet first. You nod, slowly. The next day, you begin to observe, not just exist. You note that Lady Zhu always leaves her laundry hanging an hour longer than she should technically against the rules. That Lady Jinhua's perfume has grown noticeably stronger, perhaps enough to trigger His Majesty's sensitivities, as recorded in the infamous scroll of preferences. You don't act on any of it yet, but you're building a mental scroll of your own. That evening, while brushing your hair, your maid says quietly, I heard a story. You wait? A concubine once braided fishbone into another girl's pillow stuffing. She woke up bleeding. You shudder, but only inside. Another, she continues, used to sprinkle pepper under her rival's bed mat, just enough to make her sneeze through the night. It sounds almost comedic, until you remember that sleep determines beauty, which determines favor, which determines survival. This isn't a joke. It's biology, weaponized by etiquette. Later that night, as you lie in bed, you notice the faint rustle of fabric near the door. You sit up just in time to see the hem of someone's robe vanish around the corner. Your sandals are placed neatly at your bedside. Both of them, but the laces are tied together in a perfect double knot. You almost laugh. Aramosto. But instead, you untie them calmly and tuck them away. The battle has begun, and you're in it. Whether you like it or not, by now, you've accepted that the palace has its own language, not just Mandarin, not even poetry or calligraphy, but a subtler, crueler form of communication. It's spoken in the curve of a smile that's one breath too long. It's in the way a robe is pressed, how high a bun sits, which flower is chosen for a vase. Every choice is a whisper of status. Every mistake a scream, and nothing speaks louder than a hairpin. This morning, you receive a lacquered box. No note, no explanation. Inside lies a new hair ornament. A golden pin, slightly longer than your current one, with a single jade bead at the end. It's lovely, It's dangerous. Your rank hasn't changed. This pin suggests it has. You glance around the room. Your maid avoids eye contact. Across the courtyard, Lady Jinhua steps onto her balcony, her hair freshly styled. She's wearing a similar pin, with 2 jade beads. You've been sent a message. But from whom? You wear the pin anyway. The consequences are immediate. At breakfast, Lady Zhu accidentally spills a cup of sweet soy soup down the front of your robes. You excuse yourself calmly, and as you walk away, you hear a servant whisper, climbing fast. That one, when you return to your quarters, the tray of fruit that's usually waiting is gone. Later that day, you're reassigned from embroidery duty to hall presence, which means sitting perfectly still in the public corridor of the Empress's court, where senior concubines pass by and take careful note of who is present and how long they sit. Hall presence is not punishment, but it is exposure. You keep your spine straight for 3 full hours, legs numb, eyes lowered. When the Empress passes, you bow so perfectly you can feel every vertebrae in your back align. She says nothing. She doesn't even glance your way. Still, you feel seen. By late afternoon, your legs are like boiled turnips. A eunuch finally dismisses you with a nod. As you stand to leave, another concubine one you've never spoken to brushes past you, murmuring under her breath, "The higher the bun, the harder the fall." You blink, unsure if she's threatening you or warning you. Maybe both. Historians still puzzle over the symbolic weight of hairpins in the Qing dynasty. Some sources suggest they were tokens of favor. Others claim they were planted by rival factions to incite tension. A few fringe accounts even suggest certain pins were poisoned, though no official record confirms this. Still, you never quite stop wondering as you place yours back in the box each night. That evening, you take a walk in the moon garden, chaperoned by a silent maid. You pass Lady Ning, seated on a bench, fanning herself slowly with a fan painted with clouds. She doesn't look at you. "You wore the jade," she says flatly. You pause. "Was I not supposed to?" "That depends," she replies. "Do you know who sent it?" You shake your head. She turns, finally meeting your eyes. "Then you've accepted a gift from a ghost, and in this palace, ghosts have long memories. You don't sleep much that night. Instead, you lie awake and list your possible benefactors. The Emperor? Maybe. But why no summons? The Empress? Unlikely. She prefers formal channels. Lady Ning? Perhaps, but she wouldn't warn you about her own trap." You run the list again and again until the morning bell sounds and sleep is no longer an option. The next day, you find yourself reassigned once more. Not embroidery, not hall presence. You're scheduled for tea service. Tea service is no small thing. You'll be attending the Emperor's afternoon study, not to speak, of course, but to observe quietly and pour perfectly. It's an honor reserved for the discreet and the expendable. Your robe is saffron green. Your hair is simple. You are a decorative accessory with legs. You kneel beside the low lacquered table. The Emperor reads scrolls and occasionally glances out the window. He does not acknowledge you. You pour tea 3 times, once for him, once for the attending scholar, and once more just to refill the first. You don't spill a drop, but then just as you begin to rise, he speaks. "You've changed your hair?" You freeze. "Yes, Your Majesty," you reply, voice soft. "Hem. He turns back to his scroll. That's it. That's the entire interaction. And yet, your stomach flutters all evening like a silk banner in the breeze. Later, your maid finds a small package outside your room. Inside, another hairpin, this one with 3 jade beads. You leave it unopened, not because you're afraid, but because you're starting to understand Every jade bead is a debt, and the palace never forgets what it's owed. You keep the hairpin in its box. Not out of defiance here, not that bold, but out of strategy. To accept a gift is to declare allegiance. And right now, you're not sure who you'd be aligning with. The Emperor, a rival, a faction you've yet to meet. So, the hairpin waits. And you wait with it. Instead, you wear the simpler pin again, the one with the single jade bead, and watch as the whispers slow but don't quite stop. The other concubines take note of your restraint, and Lady Ning nods faintly in your direction the next time your paths cross. Approval, perhaps, or interest. Either way, it's safer than attention. You've entered what the older concubines call the gray space. No longer new, no longer favored, not forgotten, just hovering. This is the most dangerous position in the palace. When you're new, people underestimate you. When you're favored, they fear you. But when you're in between, they target you just enough to keep you from rising again, but not so much as to be punished for it. It's a slow, elegant kind of sabotage, and it begins with a fan. You receive it at breakfast, a gift, according to the eunuch who delivers it. Simple silk, painted with lotus blossoms, a symbol of purity. The irony makes you smile. No note, no signature. You don't need one. It's the same pattern Lady Zhu is known to use on her stationery. You say nothing. Instead, you use the fan that day while sitting in the inner garden during quiet reflection. A scheduled hour, where favored concubines are allowed to be seen, appearing contemplative. You make sure Lady Zhu sees it. The corner of her mouth twitches. Game on. That evening, your ceremonial robe is missing. Not stolen, missing. That's how the palace works. No one ever steals. Things just disappear. You report it to your maid, who goes pale and rushes off. She returns 2 hours later, flustered, with the robe in hand, folded, oddly enough, in a cleaning closet near the bathhouse. Folded, not dropped, not stuffed. Placed. You don't need a scholar to read that message. Someone wants you to know they could do worse. The next day, you're reassembled, this time to assist with preparations for the Mid-Autumn Festival. A big deal. It's one of the few times the Emperor walks the gardens in full view of the court. Concubines included. Decorations, lanterns, musical performances, even poetry. Redding's everything is arranged weeks in advance. And you, humble concubine, are now helping paint lanterns. You could take it as an insult, but you don't. Because the women on this task are all in between, like you. And now you have a front row seat to the subplots beneath the ceremony. Lantern color requests reveal who's trying to flatter whom. Floral designs hint at rivalries, at stolen lovers, at inside jokes only 5 people in the world would understand. Lady Chun, one of the senior favorites, insists her lantern include plum blossoms, despite it being the wrong season. Everyone knows plum blossoms were the Emperor's late mother's favorite. It's not just a design, it's a declaration. Lady Jinhua, not to be outdone, commissions a set of twin lanterns meant to float in the koi pond. Her chosen motif, twin cranes, one looking back, the other forward. The message is clear. I honor the past, but I am the future. You paint yours in silence. A simple fan unfolding. A single falling petal. Symbolic, perhaps, of restraint. Or just that you're tired. Your lantern is placed at the back of the procession. You're fine with that. Historians still marvel at how much was said with silken symbols in the imperial court. From robe patterns to incense types, the concubines learned to speak fluently without ever opening their mouths. A language of implications, where too much meant death, and too little meant invisibility. On the night of the festival, the palace glows. Every surface shimmers with candlelight. The moon hangs low and heavy in the sky, a giant silver coin watching from above. You wear your ceremonial robe, your simplest hairpin, and a smile that means absolutely nothing. You bow to the Empress. You greet Lady Ning. You avoid Lady Jinhua entirely. As the Emperor enters the garden, the air shifts. Even the wind holds its breath. He nods at the gathered women, speaks briefly to the Empress, then begins his walk. You stay where you're told, row left side, beside the plum tree with the carved stone base. As he passes, your eyes lower, but then, inexplicably, he pauses. His gaze lingers on your lantern. Not you, the lantern, just a heartbeat, a blink. Then he moves on. You breathe again. Later, after the festival ends, you return to your room to find a scroll waiting. Inside, a single line of poetry. A fan unfolded does not always need wind. There is no name, no seal, but you'll recognize the handwriting. It's his. And suddenly, the game has changed again. You read the scroll 3 times that night. A fan unfolded does not always need wind. At first, it feels like a riddle, then a compliment, then a warning, then all 3 at once. You tuck it into the hidden lining of your lacquered trunk between your ceremony robe and the unused 3-bead hairpin. You don't tell your maid. You don't even look at it again, but its words echo in your head like a whispered lullaby wrapped in a blade. By morning, the palace feels different. No one says anything, but you can feel the shift. A kind of gravity that pulls eyes toward you when you walk into a room. Not openly, never. Openly, but in half. Conversations that pause slightly too long when you pass, and smiles that now feel more polished than polite. Favor has returned, but not officially. And that makes it worse. Because now you're glowing but without armor. You begin to notice how quickly petty gestures evolve into full-fledged skirmishes. Lady Zhu makes a point of switching seats at calligraphy to sit beside the instructor and correct your strokes uninvited. Lady Jinhua insists you swap garden shifts so she can reclaim her view of the lotus pond. And then there's Lady Ning, who, despite her usual chill elegance, starts offering you unsolicited advice again about posture, about diction, about how to accept attention without appearing hungry for it. Graciousness, she says, over tea, is what separates favored women from replaceable ones. You nod, even as you wonder if she's training you or warning you. Later that evening, your maid returns from the kitchen with something odd. A tray of candied lotus seeds. Who sent this, you ask. She shrugs. No note. But the cook said Lady Jinhua was seen leaving the storage room earlier. You stare at the treats. Harmless. Sweet. Symbolic of purity. But all you can think about is Milan. You don't eat them. The tray disappears by morning. That day, you're scheduled for another appearance at Hall Presence. You dress carefully subtle lavender robes. Your simplest comb, just enough to be visible, not enough to invite envy. But as you make your way through the corridor, a eunuch intercepts you. You're being rerouted. To the Ink Terrace, he says, eyes downcast. This is unusual. The Ink Terrace is a private study space, used only by the Emperor and a few scholars. Rarely are concubines invited there, unless it means something. You walk there with measured steps, each one tapping softly against the stone path. The terrace is quiet. It overlooks a koi pond, and the smell of old paper and sandalwood clings to the air like memory. He's already there, not in robes of ceremony, but in a loose jacket, hair tied back casually. You bow. He gestures toward the scroll he's working on. Sit, he says simply. Help me choose a line. You blink, then kneel beside him. He holds up a half-written verse. Something about moonlight and borrowed time. You offer a hesitant suggestion. He nods. You've read the classics. Yes, Your Majesty. He raises an eyebrow. But not too many, I hope. I dislike women who quote books instead of feeling them. You offer no quote, only a smile. Historians still argue whether the emperor used poetry as a genuine form of courtship, or simply as a distraction from the stifling formality of palace life. But in this moment, sitting beside him, under a fading sky, you feel something real, or at least, something close enough. He writes another line. Your lantern? He says suddenly. It was different. You nod. It was simple. Too simple, he murmurs. But there's no criticism in his voice. You're dismissed soon after. Not with the usual ceremony, but with a wave of his hand. Almost gently, and just like that, you float back into the palace's current. Back in your quarters, your maid pretends not to notice your flushed cheeks. She adjusts your robe and hums softly an old lullaby. Maybe. Or a warning. That night, your bed feels too soft, too quiet. Too ... watched. The next morning, another gift arrives. This one is unmistakably from him. A comb, carved from dark sandalwood, engraved with the symbol of a fan mid-fold. A message. A memory. A risk. You hold it in your hands for a long time before tucking it away. Not in the open, but beneath your pillow. Close enough to feel. Far enough to deny. By now, you understand. Words are weapons, but gossip is currency. You don't need to see anyone whispering to know it's happening. The signs are obvious half smiles shared between rival concubines. Sudden laughter that stops the moment you enter a room. The eerie way a group of women bows at once, as if you've become a subject. A story. The simple girl who painted the modest lantern and received a comb from the emperor. The concubine who plays at humility but sleeps with poetry under her pillow. A woman to be watched not quite with fear, not yet with reverence but with interest. And in this palace, interest is dangerous, because everyone wants to know your secrets. Who do you speak to in the garden? What did Lady Ning say to you over tea? Why did the emperor smile when you mentioned plum wine? None of these are sins, but they can be shaped into them. So you start listening to your maid, nervous and young, becomes your ears. She doesn't speak unless asked, but she hears everything. Who left the kitchens late? Who had her robe pressed twice in one day? Which concubine slipped away with a eunuch for Easter incense? You never punish her for what she doesn't hear. You reward her for what she almost heard. By midweek, you have a delicate map of whispers, and the borders are shifting daily. Today, the most repeated whisper is about Lady Keon. Lady Keon is not favored. She's not new. She's not even especially clever. But she is tireless, and she's clever enough to know how to spread stories without ever speaking them herself. It's her maid who tells someone, who tells someone, who tells everyone. And what is she spreading? That you've met the emperor alone. Not once, but twice. That he gifted you sandalwood, a scent once reserved for royal consorts. That you're being considered for elevation. It's not true. Not officially, but gossip doesn't require truth. It only needs breath, and so you breathe carefully. Lady Ning summons you, again not publicly, but through a quiet note delivered by a eunuch, who bows too low to be just. A messenger. You meet her in the ink pavilion, the one used for private readings. She's sitting beneath a window, holding a scroll she isn't reading. You're glowing, she says, tone flat. You bow. I'm merely well rested, my lady. Don't insult us both. You stay silent. She taps the scroll against her palm. Lady Keon is watching you. Lady Zhu is planning something. Lady Jinhua thinks you're weak. You lift your eyes, slowly, And you? She smirks. I think you're becoming very interesting. She leans forward, voice dropping. Let me offer you a trade. Your heart skips. I'll give you the name of the eunuch passing messages between Lady Kian and the outer court. You wait. In exchange, I want your maid. You blink. My maid. She's clever, Lady Ning says. Too clever to serve you alone. Let her watch for me, and she'll live longer than any of us. You don't answer immediately, because this is not a conversation. It's a test. If you agree too fast, you're disloyal. Too slow, and you're calculating. You bow slightly, just enough. May I speak with her first? Lady Ning's smile is thin but real. You're learning. Back in your quarters, you summon your maid. She kneels before you, eyes lowered, hands shaking. You tell her the true. Most of it. She doesn't cry. She doesn't argue. She simply says, I'll do what you ask. You hesitate. You'll serve Lady Ning now, but only her, and only me. She nods. And just like that, you have eyes in two places. Historians still argue whether concubines truly had influence in the harem, or if it was all illusion. But influence in the palace isn't about laws or titles. It's about who carries your secrets, and how well they're carried. That night, during evening tea, you sit beside Lady Kian. She doesn't speak to you. Not at first. But after a long sip of jasmine tea, she says, I hear you've taken to poetry. You smile politely. Only the ones that rhyme. She chuckles once. Careful. Some rhymes are traps. You nod. So are compliments. The rest of the evening passes in tense stillness. But later, as you slip out under the lanterns, you catch the edge of her sleeve, brushing yours. Her whisper is quieter than breath. He likes clever girls, but not clever plans. You don't sleep that night, because now you're certain this isn't about being chosen. It's about surviving after you've been chosen. The summons comes at sunset. No warning, no hint, no favorable fruit trays or perfume trials. This time, just a quiet knock, and a eunuch standing in your doorway with a bowed head and a scroll held between gloved fingers. You don't have to open it. You already know what it says. Tonight is your turn in the Emperor's bedchamber. Your mature, new maid now, since the old one serves Lady Ning rises from her corner quietly, already preparing the robe, the comb, the scented water. She doesn't ask questions. She doesn't smile. She works as if she's doing laundry or lighting a lamp. You're grateful for her silence, because inside your chest, your heart is loud. This is different from last time. Last time, you were new, unknown, maybe a curiosity. This time, you've been watched. Whispers precede you. You're not just a name on a list anymore. You're a figure on the board. And tonight, the Emperor may be deciding where to place you or whether to remove you entirely. You're bathed in rose water and dusted with rice powder. Your robe is pale ivory, embroidered with golden cranes, the sleeves long enough to brush the floor when you walk. Your hair is pinned with the 2-bead jade ornament in the middle ground. Not too modest, not too presumptuous. Before you leave, your maid kneels beside you and says softly, "Don't drink anything unless he drinks first." You nod. You walk the corridors alone. The moon is full, and the air is thick with summer jasmine. Lanterns flicker softly along the path, but their glow feels strange, like stage lighting, like you're stepping into a play you've rehearsed but never truly understood. At the door, you kneel. A eunuch opens the panel. You enter. The room is dim, lit only by 2 candles on a low table. A scroll is unrolled beside a porcelain teacup. Incense curls from a carved jade burner. And the Emperor is not looking at you. He's gazing out the window. You wait. Eventually, He turns. You bow low, exactly as instructed. He gestures. You rise. He studies you for a moment. Then, finally, you never wore the third bead. Your throat tightens. I didn't want to assume, Your Majesty. He smiles faintly. Smart. He gestures toward the tea. You pour carefully. You offer the cup. He drinks first. So do you, he asks. Questions not about your family, your training, your embroidery, but about how you feel about the palace. Careful. Very careful. You speak slowly. I find it beautiful! Your Majesty, he raises a brow. And exhausting. You smile. That, too, he laughs. Not loudly, but genuinely. He gestures for you to sit beside him. You obey, heart ticking faster. Many women pretend not to think, he says. You pretend not to plan. You don't reply. Do you? A dangerous question. I think, you say, but I don't plan. He leans in slightly. That's a plan in itself. Historians often wondered what kinds of conversations took place in the emperor's private chambers. Very few records exist most. A speculative. Some romanticized. But the truth, you now know, is quieter, more delicate. Less about seduction and more about navigation. Less a conversation and more a performance. Eventually, the talk fades. The candles burn low. He takes your hand. And what follows is not terrifying, not grand, not even particularly poetic. It's ceremonial. Expected. A transaction. Perhaps so one softened by warmth. By the way, his fingers pause at your wrist, as if remembering the scroll, the poem, the lantern. Afterward, you are quiet. You rise, as trained when dismissed. He does not stop you. He doesn't even look away from the window again. Back in your quarters, the bed is still warm from earlier. Your maid waits with a bowl of ginger water to soothe. You wave it away. Instead, you sit by the window, robe still heavy on your shoulders, and let the night air cool your skin. You expect something to feel different. You expect to feel elevated or broken or triumphant, but you feel still. Because the truth is, you've crossed the most dangerous line now. Not from anonymity to favor, but from theoretical to remembered. You are no longer just part of the court. You are part of his memory, and memories, in the palace, are fragile things. They can lift you like silk on the wind, or bury you like stone in the garden. You sit until the candle dies. Then you lie down and whisper to the darkness. A fan, unfolded, does not always need wind. The next morning, there's a peach on your tray. Only one. Perfectly round. No blemishes. No note. And somehow, that's worse than 10 peaches in a scroll. Because now, it's not just a gesture, it's a signal. Everyone in the palace knows what a single peach means. It's not favor, it's recognition. You've been seen, selected, remembered. You have, however briefly, occupied the emperor's thoughts. And just like that, your life becomes more complicated. At breakfast, no one sits beside you. At embroidery, your hoop is already threaded by someone else's hand. At garden hour, your favorite bench is occupied by Lady Keon, even though she's never liked the plum trees. And when you return to your quarters, your water basin has been refilled twice, your brushes reorganized, and your robe for tomorrow has been freshly pressed, though you never requested it. Everything smells a little too fragrant, like flattery, like warning. The palace has turned its head toward you, and it is not blinking. That evening, you find a note slipped under your pillow. No signature. Just 6 characters in delicate brushwork. Even peaches rot, given time. You don't react. You don't tell your maid. You'll burn the note in the incense dish and let the smoke carry it away. Later that night, Lady Ning appears in your doorway, not with a warning, with tea. She sits across from you and pours without speaking. Then, finally, you've passed the second test. You raise an eyebrow. I didn't know I was being tested. You always are, she says. She sips, smiles. Now you have a choice. You wait. You can enjoy this moment. Let them serve you fruit. Paint your name in poems. Hope the Emperor continues to remember your eyes. She leans forward. Or you can prepare for when he doesn't. The words hit like cold water. You nod slowly. And how do I do that? She places a small wooden token on the table between you, carved with a plum blossom. This gives you access to the Pavilion of Silk Records. It's where certain forgotten ledgers are kept. Names, alliances, mistakes. Learn them. She finishes her tea, stands, leaves, and just like that, you're holding a carved piece of power. Not a peach, not a poem, a weapon. Historians rarely mention the Pavilion of Silk Records. It appears only once in court documents, a storage room of financial accounts and ceremonial lists. But the rumors have always lingered that deep inside its archives are notes, messages, the handwritten trails of all the people the court wished to forget but never could. The next afternoon, you visit. You claim you're looking for old poetry collections. The eunuch on duty lets you in. Your token glints in the candlelight. Inside, it smells of ink, dust, and silence. You run your fingers across scrolls, tied with faded silk. Some are cracked, some are brittle, but all of them whisper. One scroll catches your eye. A list of ceremonial robes sizes for concubines, no longer present. You recognize one named Aleti. She once rumored to have thrown herself into the koi pond. Next to her name, a single character, transferred. Another scroll contains medicinal records. Who requested what? For whom? You pause at a familiar line. Lotus root powder, administered to Lady Jinhua's, made during cold season. Odd. You remember that maid coughing for weeks, unable to speak. You filed that thought away. Then a third scroll. A list of music performances ordered for sleep therapy in the Emperor's chambers. Next to your name. Lute performance. 5th night of Midsummer. You never played the lute. You were never invited that night. So who did? And why is your name there? The pavilion doesn't give you answers. It gives you questions with teeth. But sometimes that's enough. Enough to watch more carefully, to listen more intently, to be less surprised when Lady Zhu faints dramatically during a lantern lighting, her robe suspiciously damp with perfumed water that smells very similar to the soap used in the laundry room, to understand the real meaning behind Lady Qian's sudden gift of embroidered slippers just your size, just a little too new, to notice when Lady Jinhua stops speaking to everyone all at once. You begin to step more carefully. You speak less. And when the Emperor sends a bowl of plum wine with his compliments, you sip it once, smile, and set it aside. You're not declining. You're choosing your pace. A fan doesn't always need wind, but it does need a place to close. The peach is gone by morning. You didn't eat it. You didn't move it. You simply left it there, untouched, until it vanished, taken by a maid, or perhaps by the palace itself, which has a way of sweeping away small things when no one's looking. In its place is a bowl of porridge with 3 lotus seeds, a quiet message, a nudge toward ritual. You're being asked, told, really, to return to normalcy, to rejoin the gentle flow of routine, not to get too comfortable with standing out. You oblige. You wear softer colors, simpler pins. You spend more time in the embroidery hall, where the rhythm of needle and thread silences most conversations. You even take up paper cutting during reflection hour, shaping cranes and blossoms from rice parchment with such focus that no one bothers to interrupt you. But the silence doesn't last, because you've missed your monthly cycle. It happens subtly, almost invisibly. You keep count on a small slip of paper tucked into your dressing box. You're 3 days late, then 5, then 7. You say nothing. Not to your maid, not to Lady Ning, not even to yourself. You simply stop eating peaches altogether. On the 9th day, your maid finds you awake long before sunrise, sitting at the vanity, eyes unfocused. She says nothing. She simply kneels beside you and offers a cup of hot water with ginger. The next morning, a midwife visits your quarters. She doesn't knock. She doesn't explain. She simply enters, lifts your wrist, counts silently, presses gently against your lower belly, and raises an eyebrow. Then she leaves. 2 hours later, you're summoned to the Hall of Bright Harmony. You've never been there before. It's the Empress's inner court. You change into your finest robe, soft yellow, silk-soled shoes, your hair done in 3 twists, each pinned with mother-of-pearl. You dress not for beauty, but for neutrality. The Empress is seated on a high dais, surrounded by attendants, not a single one of whom is making eye contact. You kneel. She doesn't speak at first. Then she says, almost casually, "I hear the court midwife paid you a visit." You nod. "She tends to wander," the Empress adds, sipping her tea. You say nothing. She studies you. Her gaze is not cruel, but it is exacting, like someone evaluating a painting to decide if it should hang in the corridor or be burned. "Do you think yourself special?" she asks. "No, Your Majesty." "Do you think he will protect you?" You pause. "I don't expect anything," you say. That earns you a brief smile. Dry, tight, impressed, or disappointed. You can't tell. "Good," she says. "Expectations are poison in this place." She gestures, and a tray is brought forward. On it, a bowl of bird's nest soup, a tonic, and a small folded cloth. "For your strength," she says, "and your silence." Historians still debate how much authority the Empress held over pregnancies within the harem. Officially, any child born to a concubine was a potential heir, especially if the Empress herself had no sons. But unofficially, pregnancies were inconvenient, politically volatile, easily delayed, or quietly removed. You return to your quarters in silence, the cloth still in your sleeve. That night, Lady Ning arrives. She says nothing at first, just pours tea, slowly. Then, "You've been offered protection." You glance up. "The Empress?" She nods. Of a sort, a gesture, a reminder. You take a long breath. "What should I do?" She leans back. "That depends on what you want." And there it is, the forbidden question. What do you want? A child? Favor? Freedom? You don't know. No one in the palace is allowed to know what they want. Desire is dangerous. It leads to choices, and choices can be punished. That night, you dream of walking through the garden holding a child. Your child. But every time you turn to look at their face, they vanish into petals. You wake up crying. Only briefly. Just long enough to wipe your eyes and pretend you never did. The next morning, a scroll arrives from the imperial physician. Routine, it says. An herbal tonic is included. You hold it in your hands and wonder how many women drank this, and how many woke up, unchanged. You don't drink it. Not yet. You wait. Just one more day. And in that waiting, you discover the quietest form of rebellion. Hope. You carry the tonic with you all day, tucked into your sleeve like a secret. The small lacquered bottle bumps gently against your wrist with every step, a rhythmic reminder that your body is no longer just yours. In the garden, you watch koi glide beneath the surface, their movements slow and fluid, without urgency. You envy them. Their world contains no scrolls, no whispers, no empresses offering bowls of obedience disguised as soup. But koi do not carry airs. You sit beside a stone lantern, pretending to study a scroll of Temp's poetry, but your eyes blur, your thoughts drift. Do you want this child, if there even is one, or do you simply want the chance? You remember a story Lady Ning told weeks ago about a concubine in the Ming dynasty who bore a son too early, too quietly. The child was spirited away for safety, never seen again, while the mother was promoted with great ceremony, then silenced with greater efficiency. Her garden, Lady Ning had said, bloomed for only one season. You hadn't understood it then. Now you do. By evening, the palace is humming again. Another concubine lady, Shu, is rumored to have been seen entering the West Wing, alone, dressed in red. Rumors fly that the emperor has tired of poetry and now favors dancing. You smile softly. A month ago, that would have bothered you. Now, it feels like a passing breeze on a very still lake. Let them dance. Let them whirl in silks and laughter. You have decisions to make. Back in your quarters, your maid prepares the bath. She glances once at the tonic bottle on your table but says nothing. She's trained well, loyal without speaking. As you lower yourself into the warm water, your skin prickles with uncertainty. Historians still argue whether imperial concubines had true agency, whether their choices ever made a difference. Most records suggest no, that their paths were carved for them like calligraphy lines on a bamboo scroll. But sometimes, small choices echo. You dry your skin slowly, dress without help, and when your maid bows out, you sit at your vanity alone and take out the tonic. You stare at it for a long time. Then, softly, you whisper, "Not tonight." You slide the bottle into a drawer. Not discarded, just delayed. The next morning, another scroll arrives. A summons. This time, not from the emperor, but from the Dowager Empress. A shadow within a shadow. The woman who once ruled beside his father. The woman who still rules, in ways no one speaks aloud. You dress with care. Pale blue robes, silver hairpin, no perfume. When you arrive at her residence, the hall of endless jade, you are met with silence. No music, no attendants, just the echo of your footsteps on polished stone. She is sitting alone, weaving something with gold thread. Her hands, though old, are precise. Dedicato. You've caused a stir, she says, without looking up. You bow low. I didn't mean to. Intent is for philosophers, she replies. Not women in your position. She sets the embroidery down and studies you. Her eyes are sharp, dry, almost amused. You remind me of your mother. The words hit like a gong in your chest. You freeze. No one speaks of your family. No one is supposed to. Your father served briefly at court, she continues, before he displeased someone. You say nothing. I liked your mother, she adds. She knew how to stay quiet, even when she knew too much. She leans forward. Do you know too much, child? You meet her gaze, and though your knees tremble beneath your robes, your voice stays even. I know enough to be careful. A pause. Then she smiles. A good answer. She waves her hand. You may go. Just like that. Dismissed, but not forgotten. Because if the Dowager Empress remembers your parents, then others might too. And in this palace, bloodlines are both burden and bargaining chip. You walk back through the corridor with your heart racing, because the past has just knocked on your door, and you don't know whether it's a warning or an invitation. That night, you don't sleep. You lie awake, listening to the faint flutter of moths at the paper screen, and you think about the tonic, the child that might be, and the stories left out of scrolls. And you realize this palace remembers everything, especially the things it tries to erase. The next day dawns humid, heavy with the scent of rain trapped in clouds that haven't broken yet. You rise early, without prompting. Your maid looks surprised when she enters with warm water for your face and finds you already dressed simple gray silk, plain hairpin, not a trace of powder. You look like a scholar, not a concubine. And perhaps that's the point. Because today, you are not seeking favor. You are seeking answers. You return to the Pavilion of Silk Records. This time, no excuses about poetry scrolls. You flash the plum blossom token. The eunuch lets you in with a deeper bow than before. The room greets you like a familiar silence. You head straight for the back shelves. You've learned the layout now where ceremonial lists give way to medicinal logs, where supply ledgers blur into correspondence. You're looking for names, patterns, threads. You find a scroll tucked behind an inventory. List its label faded, but familiar. It's a ledger of disbursements made under the Empress's name. Not money, not jewels, silks, paper, ink, tea. To whom? The names are initials. But to catch your eye, one is XJ, a name used often, always with green tea shipments, always in winter. The other is LY, who received mandarin peel, mint oil, and powdered lotus seed. You know those initials, you know those women. They both died within months of giving birth. The official word was complications. But mandarin, peel, and mint, that's not medicine for childbirth. That's for cramping, for ending things. You roll the scroll back carefully, your fingers trembling. This place doesn't document deaths. It documents designs. You return to your quarters and stare at the drawer holding the tonic. You do not open it. Instead, you take parchment and brush, and you begin writing not a letter, not a complaint, a record. Because if the palace remembers everything, then so will you. And if you are erased, this will remain. That evening, you walk through the Lotus Court, one of the few places concubines are allowed to visit you. You pass Lady Zhu, who eyes you with mild disdain. Lady Qian offers a nod too polished to be sincere. You don't return it, because your thoughts are elsewhere, on Lady Ning, on the Dowager's strange comment about your mother, and on a new rumor circulating like incense smoke. The Emperor may soon elevate a concubine to noble consort. There hasn't been one in years. The position is prestigious dust, below the Empress. Rare. Symbolic. A woman elevated to that status would wield influence, not just in bedchambers, but in decisions, in politics, in survival. And suddenly, the rumors become more specific. A woman with calm eyes, a talent for poetry, a gifted listener. They don't say your name. They don't have to. That night, Lady Ning visits you again. This time, she doesn't pour tea. She locks the door behind her. Have you drunk it yet? She asks. You shake your head. Her face doesn't change, but her breath does lower, as if she's relieved. Good, she says, because the Empress doesn't want a child. You meet her eyes, and the Dowager. Lady Ning smiles. A little, she doesn't mind one. You pause. And you, I want a survivor. She kneels before Yuan. Odd gesture and takes your hands. I don't care if you become noble consort. I don't care if you bear the next emperor. I care that you outlive them all. Her voice is low, unshaking. I've seen too many girls come in here like dandelions. Pretty. Temporary. She squeezes your hands. You're not a flower. You're the root. And then she leaves. Just like the... And you sit in the silence, unsure whether she's blessing you or warning you. Later, You walk to your garden alone. The moon is full again, casting silver across the pond's still surface. You think about the stories they tell concubines when they arrive, the lessons, the rules, the dances. They never teach you how to choose. They teach you how to endure. But tonight, for the first time, you wonder if those two things are different. You sit by the water, holding the tonic in your hand, and this time, you open it. You do not drink. You pour it out, slow and silent, into the soil beside the plum tree. Let the palace forget, but let the roots remember. You rise the next morning with a calm that feels foreign. Not peace. Exactly, peace has no place in the Forbidden City, but something like stillness, the kind that comes when a decision has finally settled in your bones. The tonic is gone. Not in your body, not in your drawer. It is seeped into the earth, taken by the roots of a plum tree that may or may not remember your name. You wash your face in cool water. No pamu, no luju. You wear your simplest robe and step outside into the long, narrow corridor of another imperial day. The sky is overcast, like rice paper soaked in ink. Your maid follows at a distance, her arms full of linens for the laundry court. Neither of you speaks, but your silence is different now, because now you're not hiding, you're waiting. By midday, the whispers begin. Not about you yet, but about the Emperor's latest journey to the Southern Garden Complex. He's taken 4 companions. Your name is not among them. This would bother most women. It doesn't bother you. It relieves you. Because the tension in the palace is like sunlight and drought. Brief, scorching, and dangerous. And right now, shade is your sanctuary. You spend the afternoon at the Pavilion of Brushes, quietly copying verses from an old Confucian text. A eunuch refills your ink without speaking. You feel his glance linger on your belly. You keep writing. Later, as you rinse your hands at the jade basin, Lady Jinhua appears at your side. She hasn't spoken to you in weeks. Now she leans in and says softly, "Lady Shu is unwell." You dry your hands. "Oh." She nods, eyes forward. She collapsed in the incense hall. Blood on the floor. You say nothing, she adds, almost a whisper. 3 days after drinking the same tonic, your breath catches. But only for a moment. You nod. "Thank you." Lady Jinhua disappears like mist. No one else notices. Historians still argue whether the concubines knew what was in the tonic sith. They were truly informed, or simply obedient. But what's clear is that knowledge was never the danger. Choice was, and now you've chosen. That night, the moon returns to Nor now, curved like a blade. You lie awake, one hand resting gently on your belly. No movement, no flutter, nothing but your own heartbeat. It is too early to know, too early to feel. But the not knowing is, oddly, a kind of freedom. You imagine what might come. A child with dark hair and sharp eyes. A soft voice, or no child. At all, just the quiet satisfaction of defying a system that counted you out before you even began. The palace is filled with monuments to men, to emperors, scholars, warriors. But deep beneath its marble and gold is a different kind of history. A history of small refusals, of women pouring out potions in the dark, of glances shared between rivals who become allies for 5 minutes at a time, of silences that speak louder than scrolls. You are now a part of that story. The next morning, Lady Ning sends you a single magnolia blossom in a jade vase. No note. You place it beside the plum branch on your table. 2 flowers. Neither in bloom, both waiting. That day, during calligraphy hour, a young concubine newly arrived, barely sick. Her hand trembles as she writes. You guide her wrist gently. She looks up. "You're not afraid of anything," she says. You smile. "Only of forgetting." She frowns. Forgetting what? You tap her paper with your brush. How to write my name. The girl tilts her head. You're famous, she says. Everyone knows you. You dip your brush again. That's not the same. That evening, you walk the long corridor toward your quarters alone. No guards, no summons. But halfway down the corridor, you find a folded scrap of paper tucked behind a pillar. 6 brushstrokes, not a signature, just a phrase. The tree remembers. Your heart stills. Not fear, not joy, just recognition, because someone saw what you did. Someone watched you pour the tonic out, and they didn't report you. They acknowledged you. A secret nod in a world that pretends it doesn't blink. You tuck the paper into your sleeve and keep walking. Later, as you lie in bed, the wind shifts. The screens rattle, the lantern flickers, and for a moment, the silence around you feels different, not empty, but full. Like you're not alone in the dark. Like all the women who came before youth erased, the clever, the lost are sitting quietly beside your bed, watching, waiting, and whispering. Remember. Remember. The morning air carries the scent of damp earth and orchid oil. A storm passed in the night gento, just enough to wash the dust from the tiles and leave the leaves dripping. You rise before the bell, slip on your softest slippers, and step out into the courtyard. Everything glistens. Even the stone path seems refreshed, as though the palace itself has exhaled. You walk slowly toward the plum tree. Beneath its bowed branches, the soil is darker. You crouch beside the trunk, press your palm lightly into the earth. The spot where you poured the tonic is undisturbed, but the memory hums under your fingers. Roots, after all, remember things long after the leaves forget. That day, word spreads through the harem like a current. Lady Shu has been moved. No one says where or why, but everyone knows. Moved is a word wrapped in silk. It means illness, disgrace, demotion, or worse. It means she is no longer part of the game. You return to your quarters, and for the first time in days, you notice a tiny shift in the air. The guards outside your wing bow a little deeper. Your maid stammers slightly less. A palace unicorn, who used to ignore you, pauses to ask if you need fresh ink. It's not affection. It's calculation. They think you're rising, and maybe you are. You spend the afternoon recopying an old court poem about cranes and mist. Your brushstrokes are steady, confident. Each character lands like a step, and then a message arrives. Not a scroll, not a summons, a fan. Ivory, silk-threaded, painted with a scene of a woman walking beneath falling petals. A single line of poetry is brushed along its edge. She walks where footsteps vanish. No signature, but you don't need one. Only one person writes like that. The Emperor has remembered you, or, at the very least, someone in his household wants you to think he has. Either way, the message is clear. You are being watched again. That night, you'll leave the fan closed on your vanity and pour yourself tea. You sip slowly, staring at your own reflection in the polished lacquer. You look the same, but you are not the same. Historians rarely write about the middle moments in a concubine's life. They record the beginning of her family, her first entry into court, and they record the end elevation, disgrace, or disappearance. But between those chapters is where the real story happens. In the choices no one sees. In the nights when you sleep with your back to the wall, not because you're afraid of attack, but because you trust nothing softer than stone. In the morning, the Empress sends a tray of mooncakes, not sweet ones, salted bean and lotus root. A quiet message, no note, but it says, "You've done well to remain silent." You eat one, just one, not as obedience, as acknowledgement. Because in this court, Survival isn't loud. It's made of tiny yeses and carefully timed no's. After the mooncake, you take out your journal. The one you started weeks ago. You write only one sentence. I chose not to drink. Then you fold the paper, tuck it behind the drawer lining, and place a stone on top. Someday, someone else might find it. Someone like you. Someone standing on the same edge, wondering if it's worth leaping. By evening, the palace feels quieter. You walk the lotus path alone. No greetings. No glances. Just the rustle of silk and the low chirp of crickets returning to their nighttime choir. You reach the pond and sit on the edge of the stone platform. The sky above is clear again. No moon tonight, but the stars are sharp and unashamed. You whisper, still here. Just those two words. You don't know who they're for. Yourself, perhaps, or your child. Or the memory of all the women who once knelt beside this same pond, wondering who would notice if they vanished. And in the reflection, the water does not ripple. It listens. The palace prepares for autumn. Servants bustle through corridors exchanging linens for heavier brocade, folding away summer silks and hanging wind chimes that tinkle like whispers along the eaves. Everything slows in preparation for the cooler months, as if the Forbidden City itself inhales deeply before another season of watching. You rise with the bells, wash your face, and wrap yourself in a robe the color of dried lotus petals, neither pink nor purple, but something in between. The fabric rustles softly as you move. Your hair is pulled into a single knot today. No ornaments. It's a day for blending in. You receive no summons, no scrolls, and that is, in itself, an answer. You are not being ignored. You are being observed. From behind walls, through narrow doors, by eyes that never blink. Lady Ning appears just after mid. She doesn't enter, only speaks from behind the screen. Lady Kion has taken to drinking vinegar. You pause over your teacup. Why? To make herself less fertile, she says plainly. You lower the cup. Does it work? Historians still argue, she replies, and you almost laugh. But there's no amusement in her tone. She says she'd rather be safe than remembered. You nod, slowly, because you understand. In this place, motherhood is a gamble. It can lift you, or bury you, or worse, turn you into someone else's pawn forever. That afternoon, a courier arrives with a parcel, wrapped in plain hemp cloth. No seal, no name. Inside, a soft wool blanket and a pair of tiny silk shoes unfinished. You run your fingers over the soles. They're no bigger than your palm. Not a message. A test. You say nothing. You hide them in a box behind your dressing screen, beneath old poems and dried plum blossoms. That night, your body feels different. Your chest is tender. You grow dizzy after standing too quickly. You say nothing to your maid, but she watches you closely. After dinner, she brings you hot water and ginger again. She places it on the table and then, very softly, says, "If it comes, I will help." You meet her eyes. She has served you since your arrival. She has never spoken out of turn. But now, in this quiet moment, she is telling you something more. You are not alone. You nod. She leaves. Later, in the silence of your chamber, you take out a worn scroll of lullabies, ancient ones, some so old they no longer rhyme. You whisper one aloud, your voice low and unsure. Sleep, little soul, like rain on silk, gentle steps in midnight milk, ... You pause. The second line makes no sense, but it comforts you anyway. You think of your mother. You wonder if she ever sang this to you. You wonder if she knelt like this, once, palm over belly, whispering lullabies to someone who didn't yet exist. The candle flickers. You breathe in the scent of wax, ink, and something else. Something tender. Hope, maybe. Or fear. But neither burns as hot as certainty. You are not safe. But you are no longer hiding. You are living in the space between possibility and danger. And it is terrifying and beautiful and yours. The next morning, the palace wakes with a jolt. A shrill bell rings out, not the gentle chime marking dawn, but a sharp, metallic clatter that slices through the corridors like a blade. Something has happened. Your maid bursts in, pale and breathless. They say, Lady Min is gone. You blink, still seated on your bedding, fingers curled loosely around the corner of your quilt. Gone, you repeat. Vanished, she whispers. She didn't attend morning call. Her room is empty, her bedding cold. You feel the floor steady beneath you, but the air shifts, heavy, tense. Gone. It's a word that clings, because in the Forbidden City, people do not just go. They are removed. Quietly, efficiently. Erased. Erased. You dress slowly, methodically. Not from fear, not anymore, but because movements are the only thing you can control right now. You choose gray again. It blends with the stone. At morning call, the tension is thick. 22 concubines kneel in 2 rows. Lady Kian is sniffling quietly. Lady Jinhua stares straight ahead. No one mentions Lady Min. No one even breathes her name. That is the most terrifying part of it all. The silence. You kneel, bow, rise. Every motion as if rehearsed for a stage. No one dares watch too closely. The Empress arrives a few moments later than usual. Her expression is unreadable, her voice calm. We offer prayers for clarity, she says. There has been unrest. Unrest. Another word, dressed in silk. You are dismissed early, but no one truly leaves. The eyes of the court remain on you long after your back is turned. Back in your chamber, you finally exhale. The tiny shoes beneath your dressing screen feel heavier now. You wonder if Lady Min had any secrets hidden under her floorboards. You wonder if she ever had the chance to choose. That afternoon, as if nothing has happened, a celebration is announced. The Mid-Autumn Festival. Lanterns will be hung. Performances arranged. Poetry recited under the glow of the full moon. It is a distraction. A glittering veil thrown over something bleeding. Still, you prepare. Not because you wish to attend, but because not attending would be noticed. You select a robe of pale green, a hairpin shaped like a willow leaf. Ehin tobrujuna, for beauty, but to fame come. You arrive as the musicians begin tuning their instruments. The air is thick with incense and hidden tension. You sit beneath a silk canopy, surrounded by women who no longer look each other in the eye. Performers dance. A singer begins a haunting ballad about a moon maiden lost among clouds. It's beautiful, but it sounds like mourning. Midway through the performance, a eunuch appears at your side. He bows. His Majesty requests your presence. You rise without a word. Behind you, 21 gazes slice through the candlelight, but none follow. You are led through winding corridors to the Hall of Serene Jade, a smaller residence tucked behind the Emperor's main quarters. You've never been here before. Inside, the room is simple, dimly lit. A single scroll hangs on the wall, calligraphy in strong, masculine strokes. Still waters hold the deepest shadows. You wait in silence. Moments pass. Then the curtain parts, and the Emperor enters, not robed in gold, but in plain silk, his hair unadorned, his expression unreadable. He doesn't speak. He gestures for you to sit. You do. The silence stretches between you like a bridge of glass. Then, finally, he asks, Do you fear me? You pause, then answer with honesty. I fear what you represent. He considers this, then unexpectedly he laughs. Soft, dry. Most women say no. You look him in the eye. Most women lie. Another pause. Then, do you believe in omens? He asks. You tilt your head. I believe in patterns. That seems to amuse him further. He stands, paces once, twice, then turns. I've had dreams, he says, of a woman beneath a plum tree digging into the earth, whispering. Your breath catches, but your face does not change. A dream, you murmur. He steps closer. And then I saw your name, written beside a flower I didn't recognize. His gaze lingers. Magnolia, you nod. Softly, he studies you. Then, just as quietly, says, you will remain here tonight. No orders. No tusho. Just dot placement. You bow. Deeply. But inside, your mind spins. This is not seduction. This is strategy. He is testing something. You just don't yet know what. The Hall of Serene Jade is quiet in a way the rest of the palace never is. No rustling footsteps outside your door. No distant bells. No clipped voices of passing eunuchs. Just still nestic and deliberate. Like someone has pressed a hand against the very air and hushed it. You lie on the low sleeping platform, wrapped in an embroidered quilt that smells faintly of sandalwood. The Emperor has not returned. You don't expect him to. This is not about intimacy. This is about placement. About seeing what you'll do when you are alone. And yet clearly not alone. You wonder who is listening beyond the walls, who is watching from the slits between the silk partitions, who will report on how often you breathe in your sleep. You keep your eyes closed, your breath steady. You've done this before. Played the part of stillness, worn silence like armor. You know the rules of invisibility better than anyone. When morning comes, a maid you've never met brings you tea in a cup etched with cranes. She bows too deeply, avoids your gaze. Respect or fear? You say thank you softly. She flinches, startled by your voice. When she leaves, she forgets, the door slightly ajar. It's a test. You don't move. The Emperor doesn't summon you again that day. You are returned to your own quarters by no explanation, no message. But that night, another gift arrives. A scroll. No note. No ribbon. Just a plain scroll sealed in wax with the imperial emblem. You unroll it slowly, your fingers careful not to smudge the ink. It's a painting, brushstrokes fluid, deliberate. A single tree with outstretched branches. Not a plum, not a magnolia. A cypress. Symbol of mourning, of endurance. And beneath it, a poem in simple calligraphy. She who grows in shadow sees farther than those bathed in light. Your hand trembles only slightly as you roll the scroll back up. You are being seen, and not just by the Emperor. That evening, the mature usual one kneels beside your bed as you comb your hair. She hesitates, then says, "They've reassigned Lady Jinhua to the North Wing." You pause. That's cold. She nods. Very. The North Wing is where those who have fallen out of favor go to wait. For what? No one says aloud. But everyone knows, she adds, barely above a whisper. She asked me to give you this. A folded scrap of silk. Inside, a single line of threadwork. Be careful who watches your silence. You stare at it, heart stilled. You tuck it into your sleeve. Everything feels tighter now, like the palace is shrinking around you, pulling its walls inward. And still, you breathe. Still, you wait. The next day, Your belly turns at the scent of sesame oil. You leave your breakfast untouched. You catch your reflection in the basin and notice the faintest flush in your cheeks. A wave of something anticipation, fear, rises in your chest. You tell no one. Not yet. Instead, you visit the plum garden alone. You kneel beside the tree, touch the soil again. It's drier now. The air crisper. The tree has changed, just slightly. A few golden leaves curl at its edges, but its roots hold steady. Like you. You remember Lady Min, Lady Shu, Lady Jin Hua, all gone one by one each, for a different reason, but all for the same truth. The palace does not reward stillness. It only tolerates it, and when it senses motion, whether ambition or rebellionite acts, tonight, as the lamps are lit, you receive no message, no gift, just another ordinary evening. And somehow, that is more unnerving than anything else. You light your own lantern. A simple one. White paper, no symbols. You place it by your bed, and before lying down, you whisper, "I am still here." No one answers. But the lantern's glow seems to linger longer than usual, as if listening, as if agreeing, as if, somehow, you are not alone. It begins with a cough, just one, sharp and dry, echoing from the chamber. Next, door barely noticeable, easily dismissed. But by the third day, the cough has become a chorus. Whispers move faster than officials. Illness in the inner court. A fever making its way through the servants' quarters. One concubine already confined. No name spoken aloud, but the fear in everyone's eyes is clear. Sickness in the palace is dangerous, not only for the body, but for what it reveals. The balance of power teeters when fever climbs. You are not yet sick. Not yet, but the knowledge coils in your belly like smoke. You tighten your sash and take your tea with ginger and vinegar, just like your maid suggests. You avoid the communal gardens. Decline the calligraphy hall. Keep your quarters quiet. And wait. The Empress sends word that all concubines are to remain in their own chambers unless summoned. Performances are suspended, banquets postponed. The palace feels muffled, like someone has pressed thick cotton over its mouth. Stillness returns, but not the kind you enjoy. This is the stillness of watching, of measuring who will survive what comes next. At dusk, your maid returns from the kitchens carrying more than just soup. She carries rumors. Lady Kion collapsed by the fish pond, she says. They say she burned with fever and asked for her mother. You set your chopsticks down. She was only just beginning to be noticed, you murmur. Your maid nods, carefully avoiding your eyes. No one likes to say it aloud, but illness often chooses the rising ones, the ones who had something to lose. The next morning, a physician visits. Not one of the emperor's top doctors, no. He wouldn't waste them on concubines, unless necessary, but a careful, soft-spoken man who bows low and asks to check your pulse. His hands are cold. His touch is precise. After a long moment, he says, "Strong, but slow." You raise an eyebrow. "Is that bad?" He smiles, faintly. "For a soldier? Maybe for a concubine?" He shrugs. "It means you are surviving." He leaves a small pouch of herbs, instructions scribbled in tight brushstrokes. You brew them that night. The bitter scent filling your room like armor. Later, a message arrives. But not from the emperor. From Lady Ning. A folded fan. Again. But this one is blank. No poem. No painting. Just silence. Lacquered. And delicate. You stare at it for a long time before folding it back. Even silence, it seems, can be sent. Like a warning. Historians still debate whether outbreaks in the palace were ever truly natural. Some suspect poison. Others blame the water. But most agree. Sickness was useful. It rearranged the hierarchy faster than any decree. The following day, you are summoned. Not to the emperor, to the healer's hall. You are to offer incense for the afflicted. A symbolic gesture. A testo. When you arrive, only 5 other women are present, far fewer than expected. Lady Shu, pale and thin, kneels beside a large bronze brazier. Her hands tremble as she reaches for the incense stick. You notice that the tips of her nails are bluish. Lady Ning arrives last, in full ceremonial robes, her expression unreadable. She kneels beside you and whispers, "They think it started in the Empress's kitchens." You glance at her. "Are we suspects or witnesses?" "Neither," she replies. "We are... ... replacement." Your incense stick slips slightly in your grip, but you catch it. The smoke rises, fragrant, thin, disappearing into nothing. After the offering, you return to your quarters and find a tray waiting. Not from the palace kitchens, from the emperor. The seal is unmistakable. Rice, porridge, plain, pickled vegetables, a single plum, and underneath the tray, a note in his hand. "Eat what I eat. Sleep as I sleep. We endure alike." No signature, but none is needed. The next day, the fever subsides. Not for the palace, but for you. You wake without chills. Your appetite returns, and with it, something else. The faintest stirring, low in your belly, like a secret tapping gently from inside. You'll place a hand over the spot, unsure. Could it be? You'll wait, but it doesn't come again. Still, you lie awake that night, hands on your stomach, listening not to the wind or the rustle of silks, but to something quieter, something only you can hear, something that may or may not be real but is entirely yours. By the time the first frost whitens the lotus leaves, the fever has left the palace, but not without cost. Lady Qian is gone, quietly, with no announcement, no ceremony. One day she was coughing by the pond. The next, her chamber was sealed shut. Her name is never spoken again. She is now part of the architecture of the Forbidden City. Another memory absorbed by the stone. The Empress reappears at morning call. Her robes are darker, now deep green, the color of pine needles before winter. She smiles less. Her hand shakes slightly as she lifts her tea, but her voice remains firm. "We are restored," she declares. "Let us not tempt fate again. Restored as though people are furniture, easily rearranged, repaired. You kneel, bow, and sip, and say nothing. In your chamber, the plum tree visible through your window has dropped most of its leaves. Only a few cling stubbornly, fluttering in the wind like scraps of silk. You begin spending more time in the garden again. The air is brisk, but moving keeps the nausea away. Your maid adds ginger to everything. You've told her nothing. She knows everything. In the evenings, you begin reading aloud old stories, folk tales, to no one, or rather, to someone who is not yet here. Once, there was a woman who turned into a butterfly. You whisper, eyes on the paper. She flew through the palace, and no one noticed her until she whispered in their dreams. You pause. Sometimes, being unnoticed is how you survive. Historians rarely record what concubines read, but scroll fragments suggest many read more than they were allowed to. Stories of old queens, trickster fox, spirits, gods who fell in love with mortals. Escape, written in ink. One night, a scroll arrives. From the emperor, a single sentence. The plum tree is blooming again. You read it once, then again. The plum tree outside your window is not blooming, which means the message is not about the tree. You sleep with the scroll beside your pillow. The next morning, Your robe is tighter than usual. Your maid helps you tie it looser. Still, you say nothing, but you begin writing letters you don't intend to send to your mother, to the child, to yourself. They start with, "If I am not remembered, let this be," and then they fade into nothing. You write, fold, burn. Ashes drift out the window like snowflakes that decided to be soft. A week passes. Then another. You are called to the Hall of Calming Winds, a place normally reserved for those nearing retirement from court life. The old concubines with bad knees and faded sashes. But when you arrive, the Dowager Empress is waiting. She motions for you to kneel. You do. "Do you know why you're here?" she asks. You choose your words carefully. "I suspect I'm being considered." "For what?" You glance up. "For remembrance," she chuckles. It's not a sound of joy. "You speak like someone who's already survived," she says. You keep your eyes lowered. She purity, not for herself, for you. "You've been careful," she says. "You've been quiet." "Quiet things are often broken," you reply, "before you can stop yourself." She studies you, then, slowly, says, "And sometimes, quiet things are the ones that endure the longest." You drink. The tea is bitter, but it warms your stomach. You do not ask what was in it. You don't need to. "When you rise to leave," she says, "if the time comes, say yes." You bow, and do not ask to what. Back in your quarters, your maid helps you lie down. She covers you with an extra quilt, the one embroidered with cranes. She lights a small brazier, and for the first time, she touches your hand. You do not pull away. Outside, the wind shifts. The final plum leaf falls, and you sleep. Snow comes earlier than expected. It drapes over the curved palaced roofs like silk thrown across sleeping giants. The stone paths crunch faintly beneath the guard's boots, but inside your chambers, everything is muffled and warm. A quiet cocoon where the outside world fades behind frost-laced windows. You sit by the brazier with a scroll in your lap and a bowl of sweet congee untouched beside you. The nausea has passed, replaced now by a constant heaviness. Low, steady. You rest a hand against your belly, half expecting it to speak back. It doesn't, but something shifts inside you anyway. You're not the only one who's noticed. Lady Ning visits for the first time in weeks. She arrives unannounced, brushing the snow from her sleeves with the elegance of someone raised in wealth and war. She sits without asking and studies you for a long moment before speaking. He knows. You don't ask who. Of course he does. "And?" you say. She shrugs. "And nothing. Yet." She looks at your tea, then at your hands. "You don't tremble," she says. "Should I?" "Most would." You sip your tea, letting the heat fill the silence. Then she leans closer. "I came to warn you." You say nothing. There's talk. The Empress Dowager has made her choice, but not everyone agrees. You nod slowly. "The Empress?" Lady Ning gives a small smile that never touches her eyes. She may play the part of stillness, but she has sharp hands. You already know this. You've seen it in her careful movements, her long silences. Still waters, indeed. You speak quietly. "And you?" Lady Ning's gaze hardens, just slightly. "I prefer not to bet on fragile things." She stands to leave. At the door, she pauses. "If you are wise, you'll be less visible. Just for now." She leaves. The brazier crackles behind you. You exhale, less visible, like a shadow that blinks out under the full moon. You spend the next few days in your chambers, taking shorter walks, avoiding the central courtyards, declining poetry readings and music nights. No one misses you, which means you're doing it right. But one afternoon, the Emperor appears. without warning, without guards. Just steps into your chamber like he belongs there. You rise too fast. Your vision tilts. He catches your arm. Sit! You obey. He studies you. Then your stomach. Then your face again. I wasn't sure, he says softly. I wasn't either, you reply. He nods once. Then, carefully. Is it ... wanted? You blink. The question is not one you expected. Not from him, you answer, honestly. I don't know yet. He says nothing for a long time. Then he removes a folded silk from his sleeve and hands it to you. Inside is a tiny pair of gloves, embroidered with cranes. You look at him. He shrugs. Superstition. My nursemaid made me wear something like that once. You almost laugh. Ahora mosto. He lingers a moment longer, then says, there will be a decision soon. You meet his gaze. Will I be told? He hesitates. No. Then he leaves. That night, you do not sleep. Not from fear, but from knowing a decision is coming, and you are its subject, not its maker. You think of your mother, of Lady Keon, of Lady Men, who simply vanished. You lie beneath the crane-embroidered quilt, your hands curled around your belly. You whisper, you are not yet real, but I will fight for you anyway. The wind outside whistles like a quiet warning, and the palace listens, because it always listens. The summons comes at dawn. A soft knock, a scroll without seal, just your name written in careful strokes, and below it, the words, Hall of Fragrant Ceremony, where white, not a festive color. White is the hue of mourning, of rebirth, of transition. Your hands shake as you read it, but you waste no time. Your maid helps you dress in silence, wrapping the white silk around your growing belly with delicate precision. She doesn't speak, but her eyes glisten as she adjusts your sash. Before you leave, she places a small bundle in your palm. It's a hair ribbon, pale pink, from your earliest days in the palace. You wore this your first morning here, she whispers. Maybe it will remember the way. You tuck it into your sleeve. The corridors are hushed as you walk. Snow crunches faintly outside the latticed windows. You pass familiar corners, places where you once knelt, once listened, once plotted silence. Now, you simply walk. The Hall of Fragrant Ceremony is aglow with candlelight. Dozens of wicks flicker in perfect symmetry, casting long shadows across the polished floor. The Empress is already seated. The Dowager Empress beside her, the Emperor standing near the incense table, and you are the only concubine summoned. You kneel, carefully, aware of the weight in your belly. No one speaks at first. Then the Emperor turns. She is with child, he says softly. No shock, no whispers. Everyone already knows. It is confirmation, not announcement. The Dowager Empress nods slowly. Her voice, when it comes, is precise. Then the line continues. The Empress's gaze sharpens, but her lips remain still. The Emperor gestures for you to rise. This child will be protected, he says. A pause. Then he looks directly at you, and so will you. Your breath catches. This is not a promise. This is a declaration. A shift in the palace air, like frost melting from stone. You bow deeper than you've ever bowed before. And when you rise again, everything is different. You are no longer invisible. You are no longer a background figure painted into the silk. You are chosen. The ceremony ends without flourish. Just 3 signatures written in ink. One by the Emperor, one by the Dowager Empress, and one unprecedented by you. Your name, no longer just a decoration. Now, it is a mark on history. You return to your chambers, under guard. Not the kind meant to restrain, the kind meant to protect. Your maid gasps softly when she sees you escorted by 2 soldiers in red-trimmed uniforms. She says nothing, only rushes to warm your hands with a basin of rose water. You soak them in silence. Later, a midwife arrives. Not just any healeth the palace's best. She kneels, bows, speaks gently. I will be with you every day, she says, from now until ... the 9th month. You nod. You expected her, but not her kindness. She touches your wrist, listens, smiles faintly. Strong, you carry well. Outside, the snow thickens. Inside, your world grows smaller, but also, somehow, clearer. There is no longer a question of survival. There is a path now, and you are walking it softly, steadily. Each step forward is both a risk and a victory, and you no longer walk alone. That night, you write again. No flames this time. You do not burn the letter. You fold it, wrap it in silk, hide it beneath your bed. It begins. If you ever feel afraid, remember this. Your mother was afraid too, but she walked forward anyway. The candle flickers. The air hums with silence, and the palace ever watchful, ever shifting lets you rest. Winter deepens. Snow thickens on the rooftops, muffling the entire forbidden city in a hush so complete it feels like the world itself has paused. Even the birds are quiet, their nests buried beneath ivory blankets. Inside the palace, time stretches like silk slow, smooth, and a little too fragile. You wake later now. The nausea has faded. In its place, hunger, pressure, exhaustion. Your body is not your own, but it's also more yours than it's ever been. Each movement is deliberate, each breath weighted. The midwife visits daily. She measures your pulse, checks your eyes, places warm hands on your growing belly, and smiles when she feels movement beneath. There, she says softly, a kick. Strong, stubborn. You smile back. You're sure it's a boy? You ask. She tilts her head. I'm sure it's a child. You laugh quietly. It's the first time you've truly laughed in weeks. Outside, the concubines whisper, not to your face, of course, to your shadow, to your footsteps, to your title. Because now, you have won. You are no longer just another flower in the garden. You are Consort Magnolia. The name was announced 2 days ago, carved into ivory, added to the registry, spoken aloud by a trembling eunuch in front of the emperor himself. Historians still argue whether the title came too soon, whether it was politics, or affection, or simply timing. But the record stands. Consorto Magnolia, elevated in the 2nd month of the white frost season, while carrying the emperor's heir. There are gifts now. Silks from hair oils from the western provinces, carved toison asked for, but carefully chosen. Tiny sandals, wooden rattles, cranes painted on every surface, and letters. So many letters, from distant aunts of the emperor, from ministers' wives, from women you've never met who now want you to know their names. Your maid helps you sort them into piles. To respond, she says, tapping one stack. To ignore, she adds, tapping the other. And these, you ask, pointing to the smallest stack. She smiles faintly. From women who knew you before. You don't open them right away. Instead, you walk the garden. The snow crunches under your embroidered slippers. The plum tree is bare now, branches sharp against the sky. You touch its trunk gently. It was never really about you, was it? You whisper. Still, it listens. The Dowager Empress visits that evening. She doesn't announce herself. She simply appears, cloaked in furs, a cane in her left hand. You rise slowly, bow with difficulty. She waves it off. You carry royalty, she says. You needn't bow again, but you do anyway. Out of habit, out of respect, out of strategy. She sits beside your brazier, eyes scanning your chamber. It's modest, she murmurs. You say nothing. Do you wish for more? She asks. You meet her gaze. I wish for safety. She nods. A wise answer. Then, softly, be careful of the Empress. You blink. I thought she had accepted. She accepts nothing, the Dowager says. She endures. Like you. You stir the embers with the iron pick. She won't harm the child, you say. No, she agrees. But she may harm you. Silence. Then, why warn me? The Dowager Empress smiles just barely. Because I once sat where you are now, and because I have buried more daughters than I care to name. She leaves without another word. Your maid doesn't ask who it was. She knows. The next morning, you find a note tucked beneath your pillow. Handwriting? Unfamiliar. Words, chilling. A tree with too much light. Casts. Too long a shadow. You fold it. Burn it. Watch the ash swirl. Then you whisper, I am not a tree, and the wind carries it away. The palace begins to thaw. Ice drips from carved eaves, forming tiny rivers that trickle down into stone basins. The plum tree stirs barrelets, buds tight and patient, waiting for just the right moment. Everything feels like it's on the edge of something new. Something delicate. So do you. Your body shifts every day now. Your walk is slower. Your sleep, fragmented. Your cravings, strange. Sweet persimmons. One moment, bitter melon. The next, the midwife smiles knowingly at your confusion. Both are signs of a determined child, she says. One who will not be quiet. You don't know whether to feel proud or afraid. Probably both. The Emperor visits more often now, not every night, but regularly enough to become part of your rhythm. He doesn't always speak. Sometimes he just sits, his fingers tracing the rim of your tea bowl while you recline on the daybed. One night, he brings a carved jade rattle. It was mine, he says, placing it in your hand. I chewed the edge until the paint wore off. You smiled faintly. It survived you. Barely. He stays until the lamps burn low, and just before he leaves, he pauses in the doorway. If it's a boy, you nod. He'll be watched. If it's a girl, your hand rests gently on your belly. She'll be hidden. A long silence. Then, almost too soft to hear. She, beloved. The door closes behind him, and you exhale a breath you didn't know you were holding. The Empress sends nothing. No words. No gifts. No letters. But once, you catch her in the courtyard, passing beneath the magnolia tree. She glances up at your window. Only once. Then keeps walking. That glance feels heavier than any threat. Lady Ning visits again. She brings dried lotus seeds and salted fish, simple gifts. No symbolism. Don't thank me, she says, settling beside your brazier. I'm not your ally. I know. I'm not your enemy either. I know. She studies your face. You've changed. You laugh softly. Carrying an heir will do that. No. You've become ... Quieter. You raise an eyebrow. I was always quiet. Not like this, she murmurs. Now you listen. The conversation drifts, like smoke. Later, as she rises to go, she hesitates. If something happens, you look up. Then something happens. She nods once and leaves. Historians still debate Lady Ning's motives. Some believe she plotted against the Empress. Others say she protected you. But the records don't tell what she whispered that final visit. You were never the emperor's choice. You were the palace's. You don't sleep that night. Instead, you sit by the window, one hand on your stomach, the other clutching a letter you haven't written yet. You think of names, of futures, of how many things must remain unspoken just to stay safe. A soft knock interrupts your thoughts. Your maid enters, her face pale. There's been an incident. Your heart stills. Who? She swallows. The Empress's chambermaid. She fell down the service stairs. Broke her neck. You stare. Was she pushed? No answer. Will there be an inquiry? Still nothing. You rise slowly, belly heavy, limbs tight. You walk to your bed, sit, and say, calmly, "This is the beginning." Your maid doesn't ask what you mean. She knows. Everyone in the palace knows. Change doesn't begin with thunder. It begins with a quiet thud on a stone floor. Spring presses in like breath against glass. The plum tree finally blooms. Pale blossoms tremble in the breeze, fragile and momentary, like promises whispered but never kept. Everywhere, color returns. Lanterns, golden embroidery, green shoots bursting between flagstones, long grayed by frost. Your belly leads you now. You walk, slowly, supported by your maid. Your steps, careful, deliberate. Every move feels like a small negotiation with the world. Don't fall. Don't falter. Not now. Not this close. The midwife visits twice daily. She touches your wrist and frowns. The child is eager, she says. But the time is not yet right. You nod. You already feel it. The child kicks more often now, stronger. A rhythm you've started to measure your days by. Meanwhile, the palace quiets itself around you. Court meetings grow shorter. Ministers speak more softly. The Empress remains absent from most ceremonies, citing migraines. The Dowager Empress appears in her place, her silks darker, her presence heavier. She sends you soup, not with a note, but with intention. Lady Ning hasn't visited in days. When you inquire, your maid hesitates. She's been reassigned. Where? To the Western Wing. Music archives. You nod, lips tight. That's as good as exile. The Emperor comes every evening now. Not to speak, just to sit. He brings scrolls, plays chess against himself. Once, he watches you sleep and leaves before you wake. You sense his worry. He speaks little, but his eyes give him away. There's fear there. For you, for the child, for what might come if anything goes wrong. Because in this place, this gilded, stifled place birth is never just birth. It is a test of power, of legacy, of who holds the narrative. Historians will later record that during this time, several minor concubines were sent away. Illness, they wrote, unrelated. But you know better. The palace trims its garden before a new bloom. Even you are kept from public view now. Orders from the Dowager herself. Too delicate for the sun, they say. But you understand, too dangerous to be seen is the truth. You'll lie on silk sheets, counting breaths, counting movements, counting hours. One night, your maid startles awake beside you. Your voice is calm, but firm. It's time. She runs. The midwife arrives quickly, followed by two others. Your chambers transform. Screens are drawn. Hot water brought. Herbs boiled. Incense lit. The Emperor does not come. No men allowed. This is a woman's war. And you tired, trembling are its battlefield. Pain rises like a tide, pulling you under, again and again. You scream only once, then you grit your teeth. You remember what Lady Ning once said? You carry silence well. Now, you carry agony just the same. Hours pass, maybe days. You lose track. Time dissolves into fire and blood and pressure. Then, a cry. Shapu. Insistento. Alive. The chamber stills. A moment hangs, suspended. Then the midwife turns, her hands trembling as she lifts a small, furious bundle wrapped in crimson cloth. "It's a girl," she says, voice tight with emotion. "A daughter." The world holds its breath. You reach out, and they place her in your arms. Tiny, warm, breathing, and then you whisper, "I see you." The baby blinks up at you, her brow furrowed like she's already suspicious of the world. You smile. The door creaks. The Dowager Empress enters. Arom. She walks slowly, kneels beside your bed, looks at the child, then at you, and says, "She is... unexpected." You nod. "But she is mine." A pause. Then, carefully, "She will be protected." You know what that means? She will not be named an heir. She will not appear in records. She will not walk the main halls. But she will live. And sometimes, in this place, that is the greater gift. You hold your daughter tighter. The midwife gently tucks another quilt over you both. "Sleep now," she says. You already are. Morning arrives slowly. The sun filters through sheer curtains, soft and golden, casting pale halos on the floor. For the first time in weeks, the palace is quiet, not tense, not brave but still, in a way that suggests reverence more than caution. You awaken to the sound of breathing, not your own. Hazu! Your daughter sleeps beside you, her tiny fingers curled around a fold of your sleeve, as if anchoring herself to the world she's only just entered. You watch her for a long time. She does not yet know the rules of the palace. She does not yet carry the burden of a name, or a future, or alliances whispered behind doors. She is simply here, and for now, that is enough. Your maid brings warm broth. You drink slowly. Your body aches in places you didn't know could ache. But you are alive. And she is alive. Later, the Emperor arrives. He does not speak as he sits beside you. Just looks at her. Then at you. Then back to her. She looks like you. He says softly. You smile faintly. She has your scowl. He chuckles. But there's weariness in it. Relief, too. He touches the baby's cheek with the back of his hand. Gently, reverently. She will not be announced, he says. Not now. You expected this. It hurts anyway. She won't be punished for being born. You ask? No, he replies. She will be protected. You think of the others' daughters, who never made it past infancy, sons who vanished after a single ceremony, mothers sent to the cold wings with empty arms. You think of Lady Kion, of Lady Min, of Lady Ning, and you know what he means. She will be raised in the Orchid Pavilion, he says, far from court, with books, tutors, safety. You nod. It is not what she deserves, but it is the most she can have. Before he leaves, he takes something from his sleeve, a small jade comb. I was given this as a boy, he says. Now, she will have it. He places it beside her head, not touching her, but near enough. Then he rises and goes. The next days are quiet. Visitors do not come. Gifts do not arrive. You are no longer the favored consort, the expectant mother, the center of courtly gravity. You are, once again, background. But you are not alone. Your daughter is strong. She feeds well, sleeps little, stares at shadows, like she's memorizing them. You begin to tell her stories, in whispers. Once, you say, there was a girl who learned to listen so well, she could hear the silk sigh as it was woven. She gurgles. You think that's silly? You smile. Wait until I tell you about the empress who argued with ghosts. Exactly, you whisper. Unreasonable woman. You rock her gently. She sighs. So do you. A week later, 2 palace guards arrive. They bow low and inform you that the orchid pavilion is ready. You knew it was coming. Still, you hesitate. You pack slowly. Not everything, just the letters you wrote but never sent. The hair ribbon, the tiny gloves, the jade rattle, a single blossom from the plum tree, and the child. The walk across the palace is long. You're carried in a closed palanquin, your daughter in your arms. The guards are silent. The eunuchs avoid eye contact. You are not exiled, but you are removed. The orchid pavilion is quiet, clean, sunlit. Its walls are lined with scrolls and soft cushions. There are gardens with stepping stones and koi fish, and a magnolia tree blooming early in the corner. The head maid bows. She has kind eyes. Everything is prepared. You nod. At night, you sit beneath the tree, your daughter bundled in your arms. The stars are visible here, not crowded by towers or ceremony, just sky. She yawns, a tiny sound. You whisper, one day you'll leave this place, and no one will know who you were. Not really, but maybe, if the wind is just right, they'll hear you laughing. She blinks. Until then, you say, we are quiet, and so you are, just you. Your breath, and a story waiting to begin. Let's rest now. The stars above the orchid pavilion shimmer faintly, blinking through silk curtains and quiet leaves. The plum tree has stopped blooming for the season, but its memory lingers in the air, soft, familiar, and a little sad. The child in your arms grows heavier with sleep, and you feel your own eyelids follow. The sounds of the palace are distant now, just faint echoes of footsteps you no longer have to follow. You are safe here. You are unseen, and you are free in a quiet way. Let the night stretch long. Let your breathing slow. Let the soft hush of magnolia petals falling outside your window lull you into the peace you've waited for. You've walked through shadows, through silks and whispers, through power and pain. But for now, it's over. Let your muscles release. Let your mind unfurl like a scroll unrolling in soft candlelight. You are not a concubine now. You are simply still. And you are home. Good night, Consort Magnolia. Sweet dreams.